John, I think his name is.
I think so.
And Damon John, he's big. He's really shouted out Earth 2 as well, which I want to talk to you about. So hello, everybody. It is I, the real Randy Chavez, coming at you with Brock McBlockchain. We are in America. Everyone say hello to Dashi. Hello, Dashi. And so we have a little while to introduce everyone. Just a little background. You're CEO of Feesh.
I'm also, just to be fair, I'm also the janitor of Feesh and the everything of Feesh for right now. I've contracted like 2 things, but everything else is what you see is what you get, and came from these hands and this wild, wacky brain. So
so it's a one-man show over there. Those beautiful long hands. Like, do you play piano?
I didn't know they were that long. No, I don't.
They seem it on camera.
Oh yeah, I mean I play the keyboard on my computer, but no, mostly stick to rapping. Yeah.
That's great. I get really impressed with people that have like short, stubby hands that can play piano, because they can't just reach their fingers; they have to like move their whole arm. It's very exhausting. But you're also, what would you describe yourself as, like outside of as CEO and investor? Like web developer would be like computer engineer. What would you describe yourself as?
Yeah, I mean, I think when I started really early on, the way that I kind of look at it, like, so if I'm in the business sense, I would say probably like a computer programmer or software engineer, or whatever the term is. But in reality, I think I'm a problem solver, and just technology and coding is how I solve problems most of the time. But really, at my heart, if I can do 2 things and make me, like, I'll be super happy, is like helping people and solving problems. When I can do both those together, like, that's the magic, right? So software development is just a tool in my toolbox, if you will, of solving problems.
So obviously, having a lot of years experience with that, you've gotten probably very good at that. Given enough time and enough technology, you could probably code like an AI robot.
I guess, yeah. I mean, it's not something that is I think a different, like, more emerging skill set that I've not dabbled in too much. But part of my kind of like guiding light, if you will, is I'm more on like, here's the problem and here's the idea that I think, and then I'll just go and learn whatever it is and just stick with it until it happens. So yeah, sorry, I know you were just giving an example, but like, I'm not building any rogue AI kind of stuff today.
Okay, I think that
this weekend usually, yeah.
Well, it's good it's not going to be rogue. I do like the things, though, because that is something that Stephen Hawking has warned against, that Elon Musk has warned against, but then he kind of backpedals, like, oh, we'll merge with it. And I think I'm more comfortable now after seeing some things like Sophia. Are you familiar with Sophia the robot?
Yep. You can't see it in the mask, but I'm making the meme face that she typically does.
I love that. She winks too. She's like gaining a sense of humor. It's it's terrific. But obviously this had to be something that was developed over the last, let's say, 2 decades. And when get this Adam Austin, thank you so much for the super chat. This guy's always a wild card. Like, when get this bread cat Randy X Brock merch.
Oh.
I only have one thing of merch. Do you have merch?
A while ago I had a store that I was selling some stuff for. I don't push it too much. I was doing some art that I was selling, like I did these like drippy monster things that I put on shirts. So yeah, I don't push it too much, but I just found out basically there's a company called Teespring, and now they're kind of shortening it. It's interesting. They're getting into NFTs, strangely enough, to where you could like launch an NFT, do merch, all kind of under one umbrella. You should get ad revenue for what I just said. But anyway, they do like print on demand clothes, and so you can like make designs, order your own designs at cost, and then so really it was like a way for me to design my own shirts, but some people bought them also. So
is one of your shirt designs the bread cat that was on the thumbnail of this?
The bread cat. No, so somebody did. There's a guy named Victor Largos. I think he made like a bread cat, like made out of gold. So it was like a ultra rare gold foil bread cat, which is a meme from like way early Ecomi days. And so he made that shirt. I think he was selling it for like $600 or something like that. But yeah.
Okay, that's good. Dude, this Adam Awesome Face is such a wild card. Like, you ever see Cinderella Man with?
Is it boxing?
Yeah. So in one of the announcers says, like, when he's fighting, I think Jack Bauer or I forget who he's fighting, or no, Max Schmeling. It says, you never know what you're gonna get. You're gonna get either the killer or the clown. And Adam Awesomeface, sometimes he'll come up with like these brilliant things out of nowhere. Like we were talking about like tokenomics one day, me and like my guest or me in general, and he's like, oh, well, they could do this, this, and this. Or every now and then he'll just comment about stuff. So I don't know which one we're gonna get, but today it seems to be a very friendly.
We're borderline. We're a few messages away probably from getting butt stuff. But yeah,
It depends if he's drinking with us then.
Oh yeah.
So what I was getting to before with the Figueroa and everything, that coding and everything probably was developed by you over the last like 2 decades. But if I'm not mistaken, you don't have to say if you don't want, but you are around my age or a little older, right? I'm 31.
Yeah, I'm a little older. So 37.
Okay, so when you were, and I don't know like where exactly you grew up, you get into that. I don't know if you're like in like the Midwest in like a tech dead zone, or you were in like San Francisco or New York. But when were you first introduced to like computers and electronics and that type of thing?
Good question. Yeah. So I'm in Detroit, which I wouldn't call a tech dead zone. I don't think that we're like Silicon Valley or anything like that. But there's one of the reasons why I'm in Michigan is I really like the environment. Like it's scrappy, people work hard, and like just like I said, solve problems. So I resonate with that. Like when I first moved up here, I lived on like 8 Mile, and so like from the movie, and everyone's like, "Oh, you can't like you're gonna get shot," and I was like, "No, like it's." I mean, yes, there are rough places, but I'm also from like originally from Florida, and I grew up in. I'm sure it was like national news, like Trayvon Martin, like getting shot and all that. Like that was from Sanford, so like I guess I gravitate to dangerous areas. But I think if you don't go looking for problems, then you don't usually find.
You'll be all right.
And just I don't know. So your original question was though, where did I get into tech? When I was really young, my father was lucky enough to purchase a computer, and he woke me up and said, "Hey, look, I got this computer. Learn it. You'll make a bunch of money." And I was like, "Okay." Like I'm like 6, 7. Can I go to sleep instead? Like I don't need this. But sure enough, I got in. Like I started testing out things, and this crazy thing called the internet had just come around. You had to like get discs with hours to spend online through America Online, and from there I was like, oh, this is neat, but it has to be able to do more. And so I just kept pushing the limits of what it could do. And at first I was like, if I could just make a website that was like, hey, and then have my name, which is like rudimentary, like whatever. But like back in the day, like that was not something that was really kind of happening. So I gravitated towards the web because I think it's a lot more open and just moves a lot more rapidly than a lot of like the more system programming and stuff like that, which is just slower. And so for me, it was a way of I don't know, like lately I struggle with the term like artist, but like I do think like the internet itself is a medium of untapped potential, even to like 2 decades plus in. So for me, that's where I dabble, because really I can take like anything I can imagine and make it real. So
no, agreed. I think that I forget what percentage of the world still doesn't have internet, and a very even smaller percentage of people that are just not educated because they're focusing on like finding rats to eat, or they're finding like leaves that they can boil into paste and eat that. And I think that once we're in a place where suddenly they can get like wells with water, clean water with sanitation stations, and like energy, and Elon Musk has like, I don't know, like Starlink, they can send internet, you'd be tapping into this untapped brain market, which will be an explosion of new ideas and new things.
Yeah, I really think one of the things that I think is like super powerful is the being able to have different perspectives. When I was doing some work on blockchain solutions, I think the knee jerk is like, oh, we'll just make an app. It's like, hi, guess what? Like, not everyone has a smartphone. Like, just so you know, like in America or Europe or even Australia, place like it just seems like everyone would have just a smartphone because that's what we're used to, and you just assume that the rest of the world's like that. But to your point, yeah, it's not. So yeah, it'll be interesting to not only get like, here's the basic necessities covered, but then a while ago, and I might be dating myself, but Google had this idea of doing like $100 computer, like $100 laptop. I think it ended up becoming like the Chromebook. And they were giving them to like developing countries, because the amount of knowledge that you can learn, self-learn, the way that you can communicate between each other through technology. Like it's still, yeah, like you said, like a door that has not been open for everyone. So seeing things like Veve getting localized, and granted, it's like a collector's app, and as you said, like I'm struggling for food, but guess what? I can get this Donnie. If I just have, sell everything in the entire village that we live, we can get this Donnie and we can take pictures of it. Like, so reality versus like whatever. But knowing that we're kind of like opening up to a global scale and being able to see what other cultures and other folks are really into, I think, and making that accessible is an interesting idea for me, at least.
Yeah, agree. And I don't know where here it is. It's someone, I think this is the same person as the bee on Twitter, the Gusto guy, because it's the same name. Comment on YouTube says, Veve is now on Apple Store in China mainland. Let's go. I didn't check to see if that was true or not, but if it is,
I'll ask some friends and see if they can check. But yeah,
that'd be great. Because I didn't check, and I don't think I know anyone in China right now. So I thought that was pretty perfect.
That's awesome. I think it's just a matter of time, which I think some folks seem to have a lot, and some people seem to have very little time or patience, if you will. But we're just starting to see this wheel actually start to turn, and it's been exciting already, seeing like the journey go that far of a wheel turn. We'll see, but it'll be exciting, I think, as those kinds of things. And it might not seem like huge news for Soak, but that's a huge market. And those folks do, in fact, collect things, I believe. So, yeah,
I can't wait for that. And it might take a few weeks, even a month or so. What stays dormant there, it just takes one person to be like, oh, hey, check this out, and then they all come swarming in.
Yep.
So going back to where your dad said, hey, learn this and you can make a lot of money. Your dad was obviously smart enough and had the foresight to know that. What background were your parents in?
Yeah, so my father was in like sales, we'll just call it. Probably hustling, if I'm real, but yeah. So sales, we'll call it sales. And then my mother was in a lot of odd jobs. I think I've got this weird duality about me of like picking up like the sales and being able to talk to people and kind of identify needs really, really well for my father. And then my mother, she could talk to you for like 30 seconds and you guys are best friends, right? So just being able to blend and then also like look out for people. So like even though we were in like Sanford and in like subsidized housing with my mom at the time, we would still go to like shelters because people were worse off than us even, right? So having that perspective and not just for Christmas, like every weekend we were out there like doing whatever, meeting people, befriending people. Like it was just that's how I kind of grew up on one side, and then the other side saw kind of a different walk of life. So that duality kind of helped give me perspective from a bunch of different walks of life. And so that's, I think, what drives that whole like two things of problem solving and helping people. It's just kind of baked into my DNA of the game's not fun if I win and you lose. And so I'm more about, hey, like that's why I teach code. That's why I've tried to enable and help other people, just because I think we can all win if we realize the real game versus the game that people think we want to play.
Agreed. And I'm really happy to hear you say that, because there was a small part of me, just a small part, but enough where I thought like, okay, I've watched all your interviews and I've talked with you a lot, but there was a small part of the site. Well, even if my math is way off and we don't get close to a $10 OMI by 2030, we'll hit $1 at some point. And this dude in front of me that I'm interviewing is going to be a billionaire, at least as from what on your interview with Taps, and you had said, well, some people, their amount of OMI they have starts with an M, some starts with another letter. Mm-hmm. So at least that's what I'm assuming.
Yeah. And I have 17 OMI. Yep. No, I'm just kidding. I think I was tweeting about this just the other day, and it's something that a couple of my other friends are in this interesting thing. Like you buy a Bored Ape at $2,000, and now it's worth $400,000. And if you have a more rare one, it's even more than that, right? There's just this like kind of I called it a mirror, but it's just like you're going to be faced like a lot of folks that are in OMI, a lot of folks that are in different things are going to be faced with life-changing money, right? And I think it's just you find out real quick what you're made out of, and
agreed.
It's like I'll just being real, because why not? There was a day where I woke up, checked my phone, like whatever, checked Twitter, and then not even out of bed, I just refreshed my OMI balance, and it broke $1 million for the first time. And I was just like, oh, interesting. I'm a millionaire. Like, I didn't feel anything different. And I think that for me, it was like, oh yeah, it's just money. And I get how privileged that is or whatever, but like, I have more things to do than just be rich or however you want to look at it. And since then I've the things that I've enjoyed about it more is being able to grab someone's groceries unexpectedly, or help somebody that has like a medical bill or needs a roof or things like that. Like I just, that is what, and not brag about it, right? Like I know I just talk about it here, but like I'm not doing it to,
well, I'm asking you about it, so it's okay. It makes sense.
But those are the things that I think that just I don't know. For me, it's enabling me to do it for more. A good friend of mine, his name is Tough Junkie, once did an interview, and he's a musician from Jacksonville, Florida. He said, sometimes you have to climb the tree first before you reach your hand back to like pull the next person up. And so, like, in a way, it was me being lucky enough to be in the right spot at the right time through just going my own path, and now I'm able to try and help others. And so that's what it is, for me at least.
I'm glad you touched on that, because obviously you were successful before OMI took off. Like, you had a good head on your shoulders, and did you work for GoChain, or you just worked on something that had to do with GoChain?
I was working for GoChain. Yeah.
Okay, so you, again, part of at the time was a certain blockchain that was, I think it was promising at one point, right? Because it had zero carbon emissions. Like, it had zip.
Yeah, it did a lot of the things that people are looking for in blockchains early. What drew me to it was the possibilities of like being able to do almost everything on chain, where it's not practical really on Ethereum. And in reality, like doing everything on chain, it's also not practical, but being able to not have to worry about, oh, I need to send 100 transactions to a chain. It's less than $1 on a thing. But there are trade-offs as far as like the level of decentralization and other things. And they had some interesting solves for that. But I was more focused on like actually building things, so less the blockchain itself and more on building like enterprise level decentralized applications for tracking all kinds of things.
So with me, I had a little bit of a learning curve when I just had when I first recognized that I was making more than like $1,000 a week, like in like 2017, where I'd like, in the military, you don't really make that unless you're like deployed and you're high ranking, you have separation pay, whatever, in like a danger zone. And then, again, a little bit when I had that $100,000 mark. Was there any time from when you were younger to now where it did change you a little bit? Because you could have a couple of different reactions about that. You'd be like, this is the first step into a career of greatness, of helping people. Or you could be like Rick Sanchez, like, if there was God, it would be me. So where in line did you fall between those two?
Yeah, I think it's just I've lived both with abundance growing up, and then also with literally I had no bedroom, I had no bed, I slept on the floor, right? Like, and that was from like having parents that are divorced, that one house, no bedroom, no whatever, the other house, like computer, whatever. It's like I've literally kind of had this weird duality of both abundance and nothing. People probably still have had it worse, not trying to like act like a martyr or whatever, but I think from that, like, it's less about the actual dollar amount, at least in my mind, and more about everyone's got a number, right? There's the secret to being rich, if you really want to be it, is spend less than you make, right? Like, you could make $200 and only need $100 to live, and you are technically rich, right? Because you've got abundance. And so I think everyone's got a number in which, as you continue to climb and work hard and do all these things, you hit that number, and then your salary stops mattering as much, right? Like, it's the difference of $10,000 more. And again, I understand how privileged that sounds to whatever. I'm just trying to, in general, some nominal difference, the difference between that, it matters less. So for me, I think when I was climbing as like a developer, I think it was like the 50 to 60 mark, it was close. And then like I was like, if I could just make $80,000 like as a salary, wow, like I would never have to worry again. now, like more money, more problems, and all these other things. Like
That's
even
true.
at that point, like I didn't have a house or any of these other things. And so, but I do think that there's just like there's a number. Like do the math, find out what you're worth, and try and work towards that number. Because I think once you get there, you're able to make a lot more sound decisions. Your head has this clarity where it's you're worrying less of having this fear of having your house pulled away from you or this or that. And that's again why I try and teach things or, oh, you've got this problem, let me help you here, or let me do that. Like, because I think the more that you can kind of unlock that feeling or that mentality for many, they're able to now kind of go ahead and push that for others too. And of course, some people will just be jerks because they were going to be jerks either way. But I think just I have to assume the best of intentions, and I'm going to help everybody, and hopefully it just I create more than I consume. Really, it's kind of my MO.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of helping people is creating more than you take, giving more than you take, and being very useful and helping. So that's very good. Shout out to Ernie Malas saying that he believes in me, has already served the country, now giving great amount of his time to this community. Long-term, OMI will make real wealth for patient holders. I believe so as well. Not financial advice, but and also shout out to you, because like you don't have to do anything. You can go and again, you don't really have to work, but you're choosing to take your time to come on my show, Taps's, and everyone's show. So shout out to you for that as well, and thank you, Ernie Moss, again for that. So as we were talking about, GoChain, how long were you working there or on there before you had met the Ecomi team? And could you tell the story of who approached who and why you decided to go with them, as I assume that you had gotten offers from many other projects?
Wait, sorry. So there's a couple questions in there, I guess.
Yeah, sorry.
No worries. No.
Yeah,
I'm fine to just freestyle it. Just keep me honest if I fall off the rails.
Yeah, sure. It was just when did you meet the Ecomi team? Mm-hmm. Who approached who, and why did you choose them as opposed to any other project that I'd imagine you'd have run across your desk at some point?
Yeah, so I wasn't a part of like the GoChain ICO. I kind of got pulled on at first I was a member of the community, and I was like, this is really cool. I could develop this, and this. And then, I ended up getting pulled in to actually like work for them. I signed on as a developer, then kept kind of growing from in there, and ended up building like a lot of products and solutions and ideating things there. But like any of the ICOs at the time, I think it was, especially with like the blockchain ones or the protocol ones, it was about getting projects onto your protocol. And I had nothing to do with Ecomi coming over to GoChain. But when I saw that they were coming over, or that was the blockchain that they had selected, I started looking into it, just curious about what they were building. I was also looking into NFTs at the time, seeing that they had so many IP like things. I was like, this is just it. And I think I've talked about this before, of like before even blockchain, I was in AR VR kind of building out like these experiences for education and all these other things. And so seeing the AR piece where I knew things were going, the IP piece, which made NFTs more approachable and understandable, and they were putting them together in a way that like enabled everything. I was just like, this is a no-brainer. And so I started investing my money into it very, very early price-wise. And then just being in their Telegram, being around, meeting Reese, and then eventually Dan and David and everybody else, that just kind of, it just kind of, I think they realized I got it. And I wasn't one of the people that they had to like explain it to. And we were just friends, I think, at that point.
So you invested first before you met the team?
Correct.
Yep. Awesome.
Yep. But I mean, so Reese was the kind of welcoming ambassador to anybody that showed up in the Telegram. So like, as far as like before I met the team, Reese definitely I met before. But I think just being prominent in their community because I believed in what they were doing, I was able to kind of be a helper, if you will, on like explaining like, no, this is how it works, and this is how this will work. And some people would come in and start barking similarly as we see us on Twitter now, of like, it needs to be this way, it needs to be faster, it needs to be this, or it needs to be that. I was like, actually, like, here's a flip side. Like it can be, and I guess that just for me, I've been throughout life kind of like there's like rules, and then there's like rules, right? And I've been a rule breaker, or not like a follower, like not like to the point of being bad, but it's just like when someone says you can't do that, my favorite thing is like someone like, you can't do that. And I'm like, do you have any fucking clue who I am? And they're like, no. And I'm like, good, then see ya. Like, what are you gonna do? Like, you don't even have a name to tell some. Like, go make a complaint. You don't even know who I am. Like, what are you gonna tell them? Some guy showed up and did something that he wasn't supposed. Like, I think leaning into that a little bit more of just shenanigans and stuff. But anyway, circling back to like the Ecomi thing, like I think I was just being there, seeing what they were doing, and having the foresight of like seeing it 18 steps ahead of like, oh, yep, this is a thing, all in. And it wasn't all in right at the beginning. It was like whatever, and I was contracting, more or less like contracting with GoChain the way that the things work. So I had to put money aside for taxes, right, to pay. And so I took my whole entire tax money, and I was like, you know what, like, fuck it, this is going to go up. There's no way that it doesn't. Like, it makes too much sense. So I rolled the dice, put my whole entire tax, like goose egg or like nest egg aside, like into Ecomi, and it went up for a good bit. Took the slice off that I needed for my taxes, and the rest is what grew into everything that I've got now. So, and I continue to add to it. So, like, I mean, I don't want it to be like, I just took my tax money and like everything worked out. But it just, So I just seeing it and knowing about it early, like it was a no-brainer. And I think you said like, you don't have to work now or anything. Like, but I'm playing a different game now. Like I could take things off the table and like you said, like never work again. But like I'm not playing for me. I'm playing for like other people. Because I'll be able to unlock so many different things for people that I know, strangers, things that just like places that banks wouldn't pay attention to, but I think is a good idea. There was this thing that we were doing at GoChain where these coconut farmers, it's a $1 billion industry, but they make $300 a year harvesting coconuts. Can't afford health insurance, can't afford days off, can't afford to send their kids to college, nothing. If they had like $2,500 for a truck, they could 10x their yield. And so you could do things like crowdfund them, be able to track on chain how much they're producing daily, see the growth and get paid back. But now you're creating time off, health insurance, college, changing people's lives at generational levels by just using technology and a little bit of capital behind it. So like those are the things that excite me now, beyond Feesh and everything else. But just to your other question, I was working at GoChain, doing great things there. And then Ecomi was something that I found and just I knew. And at that point, like there was no Veve, there was no app. It was like a deck and a token, and just seeing it. Then hearing the name at first, everyone groaned like Veve. This doesn't make anything, but like now it's something that like literal YouTube channels are based around, right? Like, so it's just a matter of perspective. And I think because I've had the time and heard, like I called this like the fifth wave of fear and doubt, kind of that I've seen. It's to the point where like I'm happy to talk about it, but also like it's a waste of time. Like I will not be able to just scream into the clouds and convince everyone to stop being so panicky and freaking out. So it is what it is.
So that does bring me to another point, and that does go into the next super chat. Also, shout out to Dan Chabel, and good comment there. When you were talking about that you still invest, that kind of blew my mind that you had so much already. And I think this was public on Twitter. Correct me if I was wrong. It was like several months ago. You had put in like another like large amount, like a 6-figure amount. If I was correct, it was like 240,000, something like that.
Give or take,
Okay, so I guess two-part question. One is why spend that much now when I imagine you may or may not have already 100x on the initial investment, or it might have been less than that. And also, question for Veve Monster. Do you think a 20-cent OMI is possible in the future? What do you think its limit is? And what's the biggest complaint about the team where they can improve? I guess a complaint that has validity. And where do you think they need to improve? So there's a lot there.
And then you snuck a question in right before that too.
Yeah, my question was just, obviously you think it's going to go up while you're putting in like a 6-figure bet into this. Where I think the price was higher, it was like 0.005.
It was higher, but I don't really care. So like,
where do you see that?
It goes into like some of the, like I promised like some secrets. I'm happy to dive into those, but I want to answer this thing first. But I'm gonna use the token, and I'm gonna do magic with it, and I'll explain what I plan to do in detail here in a sec if you're cool with it. But then, do I think 20 cent OMI? Yeah, I do. I mean, I think that like people see big number and go, oh, big number token, bad. It's going to get like, you have to realize like staking is coming. That's going to lock up a significant amount. That's going to restrict the supply. That we're almost fully, I think we're almost fully out, right? Like the tokens for like the team unlocks. Mind you, the team unlocks that everyone freaked the fuck out about for years now. I don't think a single one has moved from like the core team members, right? So like they're building something bigger. That should be a big signal. And then where do I think the limit is? I cannot answer that. I mean, the market's going to decide that, but I think as the utility continues to grow, and I think for the ones that are saying like, oh, buybacks are gone, the sky is falling, like, I think that it's much better that we're regulatory compliant than we do some buybacks, because that opens up a lot more things. But then beyond that, like if anything, it seems like they're going to replace it with additional utility that was never on the plate. Like, so like that is better because it's directly burning from the actual circulating supply rather than just buying back in intervals that people could game or whales could game to a net zero benefit to token holders. Utility and usage and wanting to use the token is much better for somebody that's a holder. So as far as a limit, I can't call that. I think the market will decide, but as tokens are restricted and the supply is restricted and the usage is going up, like I think you're going to get probably to where you're do now. Am I saying like 20 cents by X date? Like it's going to depend on when things land and market cycles and all those other things. But like over time, I think you'll be fine with that valuation kind of thing. But it's not something that like I don't have a hard set number as far as like where I think it's going to be by whenever. Biggest complaint about the team and where they can improve. I think, are you asking for my biggest complaint? Like,
I guess which complaint that you hear around do you think has the most validity? That like, oh, like a bunch of these are garbage, but actually this one does have a little bit of a point. You know, this complaint has some truth.
I think if anything, and I'll say why it's a complaint, but then I'll kind of like justify or give you a counter argument, I guess, be the timeline thing. Yeah. I think that timelines in software in general are 90% wrong. So it's not a Veve thing. It's sometimes you can be too optimistic. Sometimes you can be directly right where you need to be by being very, very conservative, but something else comes in. It's something that is out of your control. So if the Veve is like super heads down on this feature, and then all of a sudden a huge IP is like, yo, guess what? We want to drop something for Valentine's Day, and we need you to change. Like, and granted, I think there's two different paths, so it's a bad example. I think there's like the asset creation side, and then there's like the actual devs working on the app and stuff like that. But anyway, like sometimes you just get curveballs, especially operating at the level that they're at, also operating at like a global level. And I think just for the counter argument is the flip side is if they didn't give you any kind of like, here's what we're working on and when, and when we hope to drop it, then people would freak out and complain about like they're never give us anything, they never talk to us or anything like that. So it's like this weird balancing act where it's a zero-sum game for Veve, and I think you're seeing them kind of like walk it back a little bit and be less out in the open. I think Dan, who showed up on here, gave a good example of like doing some kind of like, here are these initiatives and here's like a progress bar, and you know it's still kind of a gray area as to like how many things are in there, but like they think that they're like 75%. I think that would go a long way rather than having hard set dates. I really like that idea that he threw out a while ago. But also like that takes more time. So like the more things that you want, like do you want them to sit there and like hold your hand and communicate like, hey guys, we're feeling like a 75% day on this thing, or do you want them to just fucking do it? Like you can't. And then the flip side is like they had all these things in the pipeline they were working on, and granted bots were a thing, right? Like, but every single week it can't always be bots. Like if like so they spent probably a good chunk of time hiring a team to work on it, doing all these capture, like versus just moving to the new drop system. Like, so sometimes the community kind of gets in their own way of what we scream and piss and moan about like every week, and so I'm just playing at a more patient level to where it's going to happen, right? Like they've delivered. There was a time where there was no app. There is an app. It is the top 10 grossing app. Like you can't ask for a better setup for a company that you're invested in, but we still like, but I can't search users. Like it's coming, right? Like you got to give them a second. But yeah, and even if they hired like 1 million people, you have to, someone has to train those people about the code base and have them get onboarded and all these other things. Like, so there's always a balancing act to that. I think there was a couple more questions. I just want to make sure that person gets their $20 worth.
Oh yeah, and then it says same for the community. Where I guess the same for
Where do we
community.
need
What do
to
you think?
improve? Like, I'm not saying
Community?
like, yeah. So I think if you're saying like, can we as a community like kind of go, like, I really think lately we've got a problem of picking by whatever reason, like we've got like, here's a handful of 12 people that we're going to listen to, and whatever they say, we're going to take and ride with forever. I've seen like where it's like, someone will say, oh, I really like this comic book. That cover's cool. I've never read it before. And someone will like, this comic's only worth $200. It's bullshit. Like, not understanding that like the 2 million people that are in OMI, like someone's going to shout out, not 2 million. Like, that's another thing that people love to debate. Like, who cares? It's a lot of people, and it's a top 10 app. You can't say like there's no people, but yeah, we're making all this money. Anyway. But yeah, so the community, I think we need to like blend and take a breath a little bit more, and realize like all these things are going to come. But you're just going to need to yeah, it's coming, right? But we as a community, I think, need to take a breath and realize that we're all here for the same reason. We want Veve to do well. Everyone, of course, should be able to cash out when the time comes. But like, it's if they released like US only, people would lose their fucking minds. Doing one country is whatever. They're operating at a global level to let everyone of their users that qualifies to be able to cash out and be regulatory compliant about it in a shifting landscape. Like, it's just not something that just is like easy. If it was easy, everyone would do it. And as far as people like talking about like Disney acquisitions and all these other things, like Disney's not going to buy in now to do all these, like, to get all these headaches. Vive's going to have to sort these headaches out, and they're doing it. So of course, everyone wants it yesterday. Veve wants it yesterday. Surprise. Like, think about it from their perspective. It's not something they're dragging their feet because they don't have their money or any of these other things. It's because they're trying to do it the right way, and the right way is fucking hard. So
a lot of regulatory compliance.
Yeah.
I think Dan Schawbel said it best, or said, guys, we've already won. Let's just have fun. And also, Hello K. Shout out say that Brock looks like a golden moment here.
Yeah.
I love Hello K. I just had him on the other day. He's great. He's awesome. We love him.
I liked him until he gave me a 3 peppers out of 5. But...
Oh yeah, only 60% golden moment. You're like a Cogsworth and Lumiere, or him.
But can we dive into some OMI fun stuff?
Yes.
Okay. So
wait for this.
So yeah, I think it'll be really interesting. This is going to be speculative because we don't know how some of these things are going to land. It makes a lot of assumptions that everything's here, but in theory, if you're not thinking about it already, and this ties back into your question of like, why did I spend whatever into OMI? It's because I want to use the token, right? I think that even with the new drop system that's coming, being fair actually means you're going to lose even more in some ways as the user base grows. And so with that, Veve has the MCP route and the OUP route, right? Mm-hmm. So you can take that OMI. Let's just say I have $100 in gems and $100 in OMI. If there's a collectible that's coming up that's going to be $40, I can say, oh, but I think it's going to be $300 or $1,000 secondary, like whatever it is. And you'll have to do some research and ride your gut a little bit. But in a perfect world, let's say I go and wager $50 in my OMI, and I'm going to buy it if I get it on 50. If you lose it, whatever. Who cares? Try again next week or in a few days later. And actually having more drops helps this system kind of like work. But you could then buy enough wager tickets, and if you hit, then you get to buy it at retail. So say you buy it at retail for 50, you go and sell it for 500,000, like whatever it is. I know right now it's in a gem squeeze bear market. Everyone's like sad. I get it, but like things are going to come back around. So anyway, you could technically take that $50 and 10x it to 500. You can repeat this over and over again. And you're like, well, eventually you're going to run out of OMI. So having OMI to NFT is actually a thing that people I don't think are really thinking about. Is I can buy something for that $300 gems, flip it, and immediately sell it for $100 or $300, the same price in OMI. Now I've got my OMI back, so I can continue to do more of these wager raffles and things like that. You can keep doing that. If you can make $1,000 a month or a week by doing a couple drops that you hit, and even making $200 a time, you can make $1,000 a week. By the end of 1 year, you now have the highest level staking tier for free.
Yeah, you quit your job. You can do that.
Well, that's one route, right? Like, so you can get to stay at the highest staking tier and get all the benefits and reduce your fees. I think in theory, we'll have to see what the final plan is, but then you get to do more levels like in this thing, because you could go eventually work your way up to say like a Todd, and let's say a Todd's like $1,500 or $15,000, right? That's like a store of value. And the cool thing is that people I don't think are thinking about is that quick flip. So if I've got a Todd, and let's say OMI's at 10 cents, and it's $15,000, I could sell that at, what is it, like 150 OMI at that time, 150,000 OMI.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not doing the math, but anyway, 150,000 OMI. And then if the Todd stays at the same price, but OMI dips to say 7 cents or whatever, 7.5 cents, I can then rebuy the Todd do that reverse. If OMI dips, sell your Todd for 15,000, but in OMI, making 200,000 OMI, then rebuy it at the same price when OMI reverses and goes back. And now I've got a difference of 50,000 OMI. Repeat that 3 times and you've got yourself a free Todd, right? So you can start to, and the price of the Todd hasn't changed. So you can actually flip in and out of the currency. It's a new layer on OMI where you can use the USD value in gems, but get the OMI value if it dips, and then sell on a dip to get more OMI from somebody else, and then flip it the reverse back into gems if you need it. Now, that's just another layer on this. Another cool thing that you could be able to do once interoperability is there is watching that secondary market on IMX or eventually even OpenSea potentially. Watch when Ethereum is actually at a high, go and sell at a high Ethereum price, flip that Ethereum into USDT like a stable coin, wait till OMI is at a downcline, buy, and now you've actually taken whatever the gains that Ethereum was on, say it's like a 10% jump, selling a collectible with high liquidity on a secondary market for Ethereum, cash it into USD price. From there, wait till OMI dips, say 10%, buy into OMI, then go back into Veve, and then do the reverse where you're actually doing it. So where you could do like 10% hop here, 10% hop here, 10% hop there, or if it's a gem squeeze where it's 20 to 30%, right there is going to be just tons of gains where the dollar value in Veve may not have changed, but you've gotten 10%, 10%, 20%, and you're back in with the same collectible, but with 40% difference in value. And so those are just tons and tons of games. And from there, you can really start to play the other track where you're actually farming points for a master collector. Now, not only are you hitting a drop off your utility program points, but you're also doing the same thing for master collector and continue to flip again. And then it gets really, really interesting the more that you can do it. So this is, again, something I think that people aren't really thinking about is the fact that we'll actually have almost like 3 layers of liquidity and differences that you'll be able to flip in and out of. So the knee jerk is like, well, what if no one wants to buy it for that price? You could even discount in the gem price for OMI and flip in. And another thing to consider is new users that know nothing about crypto might take OMI if they feel like they're getting a whole lot of something or whatever, and start to play this game without even knowing that they're buying and selling OMI. And while they're just holding it, they're locking that up from the circulating supply because they're not out there trading it like somebody else might be. So there's tons of ways. The opposite is also true, where you could actually take that OMI that you made off those TODs or however you want to do it, and then go into those secondary markets and snipe deals there, bring them back into OMI, wait, and go. And then I think that something that people aren't really like looking into is these gem squeezes that we keep seeing are going to be natural ebbs and flows that the markets just do. No one just goes and buys even like a classic like Rolls Royce fancy car. I know dick about cars, but I think that Rolls Royce are good. But yeah, you could take that fancy car and if you bought it right away, you can't just go and flip it for like the crazy value. Things take time to mature. So play all these games while you're stacking up a collection, and then wait for them to mature, and that's just another layer on top. So the interesting part is all of these different ways to kind of look at the assets that we've been seeing and weaponizing OMI, but also embracing gem squeezes and using that to make those 20 and 30% gains if you play it right, with all these different kind of maneuvers that you can do. And then beyond that, another layer would be start stacking for master collector, but also start stacking for renting. Renting is going to be huge. That's something I've talked about. Like people thought I was like joking like a year plus half ago, and I was like, I'm buying XYZ for renting because they're like, why would anybody rent it? It's like, because one day they're going to be gone. Like they're just not like the flip side. And this is, I think, the 1 foot fence that people are looking at is like OMI to NFT is going to let all these whales come in. Yes, it is true. But you also get to play the field, and you don't have to be playing at a Todd, like the example. You could do the same thing with anything that's got good liquidity in Veve. So maybe it's a $500 item. I'm trying not to say anything because it pumps whatever. Like I'm not trying to play that game, but you could play that even on like DeLoreans at like the $100 range, where you could start to mess with the ebb and flow of OMI and gems and gem squeezes and all that, and play them together, and you really can start to turn OMI and Veve into a full-time job pretty easily.
Yeah, I mean, and for some, the less amount of money you make, the in the real, or not so the real world, in your day job, the easier it is to leave. Like the easier it is to make that in OMI and in gems and selling that for. I don't know if even if on the app they only use OMI, like you said, most likely they'll be on OpenSea. And I think because Coinbase had put in a large investment into Immutable X, obviously we'll be on Immutable X and we should be on OpenSea, but I think we should be on Coinbase as well. And I think in that last video, they had the team had mentioned something about how Immutable X is kind of getting its act together with OpenSea, not to mention GameStop have their NFT marketplace as well. So I think there's a lot of playgrounds that we could visit. It's like Feesh, open the portals, Feesh can go elsewhere, other Feesh can come to your tank, that type of deal. Yeah. So there's a lot of different ways where you might even be able to sell them for Ethereum, might be able to sell them for whatever you want. There's something. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, yeah, just I think that there's a lot of interesting things that are happening lately that seem to just be falling into place. So it's interesting.
Yeah, agreed. And something I did want to push back on, though, that it's only just like a slight thing. It's where the OMI utility and the Master Collector program, they'll probably be out around the same time. But do you think that the OMI to NFT will be out the same time as like the raffle OMI? Or do you think that'll take a couple months to implement afterwards?
I'm not sure. I think we're due probably like an updated article, I think, that will spell out kind of like what their primary focus is. I bet you it's probably in line with what the original article was as far as like prioritization. But the funny thing is, like, there's going to be a time, like few people probably now remember like the time where there wasn't a secondary market. Right?
Yeah.
Like it was the end of the world that nobody could get into the market except for a couple people and then a couple more people. It was tragic, and people were crying like they were being physically attacked on Twitter and other places. Like, but yet, hey, look, we're here, and the secondary is actually where most of the action is happening, right? So this too shall pass as far as like the timing and yeah, I know that like we're living in this like second by second, millisecond by millisecond kind of like world, but just like they're going to do it. And the flip side is like, do you want it fast or do you want it really, really good? And I think we probably want it really, really good. And so there might be times where they've got something that works how they expected it to originally, but then through testing, it probably misses the mark. And so do you want them to just kick out like a shitty subpar experience? Or let's just give them the time that they need to make it right, because they normally do. There was a time where the drops were like a disaster, and we were like, what the fuck was that? I don't know, like, say the word Nightwing around certain people and you'll see them just like get PTSD, right? Like it's just it's better than it ever will, and it's going to continue to get better and better and better. So I'm not concerned about timing. I think that they'll all come as quickly as they're able to, and there'll become a time where like some of the people that have been around since even right now will joke about the hardships that we faced. But we're here early, and you and I were talking about just like briefly offline that sometimes like some people don't want the friction, and so they're waiting in the wings. Other times we're enduring this friction, and sometimes it can feel painful, like really, really painful. But we're riding these waters in hopes of getting that edge on the ones that'll come after. So it's just a matter of time. I'm sure that, again, like I've been in it for ages, and still have just seen all the things come to fruition. So I'm not worried by it, but I could see someone that got in early January, buying at a high, then getting hit with like a gem squeeze and just this first kind of like big bear market that Veve's seen for a bit, and it's not really tipped back up just yet. There's some catalysts that I think that'll eventually think some of the things that we've mentioned, but I think in general just some other stuff. But yeah, it's just 'tis the season, I guess, of this downturn. Some people are ready for it. Some people are just like in a world of pain and seeing red, and that can cloud your judgment. And I get it, but I've seen it a number of times to know that it usually comes out fine.
Yeah, same here. And to go back on your point, saying like, oh, like remember when we had like the bad times, and then as soon as we get past it, bad times are almost laughable. I remember somebody mentioning the other day, hey, remember when we were on GoChain? Like, remember before we were on Immutable X? And I was like, oh yeah. How quickly we forget those vicissitudes.
Yeah,
So
and it's usually as soon as like one drops and like we delivered it, it's celebration for a second, and then it's like, but wait about, and then like we're off to the next thing with our pitchforks and torches. But yeah, like we are, all of the NFTs are on layer 2, and then everyone's like, cool, okay, but when are they going to be interoperable? Like it's this Veve is just on this path, and again, it's not exclusive to Veve. It's any kind of development, or when you're kind of like being the trailblazer. Everyone now suddenly that are now following behind you, they're pointing at all the other different directions. And like the team has to be disciplined and being focused and moving towards things. And I think that's what they're kind of trying to do now, is zero in on the next thing and continue to push further.
Agreed. And I know it's not just with Veve, like that's with everything. It's like with the MCU, it's like scientists that like cure this disease. Okay, great. Like what's next? What are you going to cure next? Like, damn, give them a break.
Yeah, exactly.
So I don't know if you're familiar with this tweet. In like December of last year, Dr. Profit had mentioned that there was in his 10 lists of what he sees Veve and OMI going to do this year in 2022, he listed that there's going to be a couple of projects, minimum one, that will have OMI utility. I don't know if that was something that he was going to do himself, or maybe he had inside info, but Hello K says that Venkatesh leaked an Epico OMI utility the other day on video, which I didn't go over yet in any of my videos, but I guess we'll talk about it here. What are your thoughts on that?
Sorry, so thoughts on the tweet that you're showing, or the thing, or the original tweet, or both?
Well, the original, I guess this right now, is this one of the things that I think Dr. Profit might have been talking about? Do you think that there's going to be so many things that are going to accept OMI? Like, I think you've accepted OMI for Feesh.
Yeah, so up until now, so when I built Feeshes, and happy to go into it if we want, but again, I'm not here to try and press anything, so wherever the conversation goes. But yeah, with Feesh, when I first was kind of setting it up, we weren't on layer 2 with OMI yet, or we weren't, it wasn't on Ethereum to where I could like take it just outright through a contract. And I wanted to do my thing regardless. Like I don't necessarily want to live in a world where I'm married to OMI or Veve or anything like that. I'm just doing my own thing. So, but yeah, I've accepted OMI or Veve collectibles for Feesh for people that didn't have Ethereum or were nervous about minting, where I would mint for them and then send it to them. They send me the stuff, and that's it. So it's just so technically there was this like lo-fi OMI utility with Feeshes for a while. I don't know if, I think Dr. Profit, and again, I don't talk to him generally like quite often, but I think that he was probably just guessing. I don't know if there was like inside information at that point that he could have known about some of these other things, but maybe I'm wrong. This is me speculating on speculation of speculation.
Yeah.
But I think it's just inevitable, right? Like Veve is building something that, and this goes back to stuff that I've said earlier, like the OMI token is not called Veve token because it's a bigger ecosystem. Yeah. I think Veve themselves eventually will have things beyond what we know of today, if I had to guess. And again, I've got an NDA. I'm not saying anything that I just believe this to be true. And it's because they had said earlier that it's a part of a larger ecosystem. I think that the game that's kind of like leaked, but not officially kind of been announced or whatever, that utility is interesting. But I'm building a game for Feeshes, and I'm baking in OMI utility now that it's available to do so, where if you've got a Feesh, you play for free. If you don't want to have a Feesh, that's fine. If you still want to play, then there'll be like a small fee in OMI, and then whatever I take in OMI, I'll burn half of it because I just don't care. I'm wild and crazy.
So that is definitely something that I wanted to get into. Your work in Feesh, and I'll get to the super chats as I get to them in a minute. But what would be something that you as leader of the Feesh, CEO of the Feesh, would implement? I know you have a game, but is there going to be like a government of Feesh? Is there going to be like an economic system? or are you just starting with like a game right now and then seeing where it goes?
So the original plan for the project was push it further. I think NFTs, like I think Veve is leading in one way that it's NFTs that you can actually like drop in a showroom and or like organize and like for me it's like playing toys. Like I used to have like action figures that I'd set up in these huge battles. I can do that again in Veve, and then I can keep it in my pocket. And I can actually then go and immediately just open up a new thing. And instead of tearing down and picking up all my toys and then redoing it, I can just make a new showroom and then play with my toys in a different thing. And then I can flip between battles and scenes. And I think that eventually there'll be content creators that create things just through Veve in the Veveverse or whatever. And then they'll have channels, TikToks, like whatever you name it, with Veve created content where I can actually play because I own these NFTs with these Marvel IPs mixed with Back to the Future, mixed with whatever. I can create these like metaverses, whether you want to call it a metaverse in what we all already think, but or it's just within these NFTs, I can interact with them in new ways that are cross. And like, what are the IP holders can't stop me because I own these IPs, so I can create content from the things that I own, just like I could create content from like action figures out in my backyard or whatever the case might be. And so I think that's going to be interesting.
I think so.
But with the Feeshes, I wanted to like take these like all I was seeing was all these like flat images, and I was like, NFTs can be so much more. Like it can be animated, it can be this, and I've thrown out the story a few times. But somebody on Twitter, and I'm again a rule breaker and a fucking watch me kind of person. And so they were like, NFTs aren't real because you can't touch them. I was like, oh, so stupid, right? Like you like what if I? And so I was like, I'll flip it. Like I'm gonna make an NFT touch you. And so I made these Feesh that were goofy looking and like lovable, that you could immediately like, and because again, like utility, like I wanted to have, before I asked for a dime from anybody, I wanted to have immediate utility. So I invested like 4.5 months building out this entire system that could not only just be a fish tank, but NFTs that were animated and moved around. And it's a flat image on OpenSea, but you toss it into a fish tank. You can have unlimited, like I was just going to give away everything for the most part. So if you have a fish, unlimited fish tanks, create whatever you want, have different vibes, you can drop your fish in or whatever. But then the flip side is like, I'm going to make you feel something. So you start bonding with your fish. You can interact with your fish every day. They send you emails. There's this overarching story that I've started dropping, and few people know about that story piece. But there's a lot of mystery and lore, and there's like, I'm shocked because I've got like 800 plus, almost 1,000 people on this Discord, and they're all diving into these lore channels and like connecting these little breadcrumbs that I've left around everywhere of like where this story is actually going. And some of them are right, some of them are technically influencing. I was like, wow, that's a damn good idea. You know, but it's fun. And another cool thing is like the community side really shocked me because that was something I was like, ugh, community, bleh, I'll just make these Feesh. And I didn't want to make a Discord. I was reluctant because I'm in like 1,000 Discords. It's too much of a distraction for me. But like this Discord, like the fish cord, that people show up, they get airdrops like every month. And sometimes every week. I just drop stuff like crazy because I want to keep doing this story and keep leveling up the journey, if you will, that I'm giving to everybody. But they do like airdrop trades amongst themselves, and there's been zero issues. Like it's a bunch of strangers that have all just have these cartoon Feesh that they love, and they're like, oh, I got doubles of this, I'll trade you for this or that, and then they'll show off their tanks. And like that has been a cool thing for me, is like the tank side I think was like the main focus, but there's a whole lot more to kind of come that I've been slowly kind of dropping. And I made a note not to leak anything for the Feesh, but I can't help it. It just keeps screaming at me to leak, but we'll see. I'm fighting it. But yeah, so they show up and they make these tanks, and some of them are so creative, the way that they'll combine different airdrops together. Like it reminds me of Veve in a way, but everything with me is like 2D, because I'm not a 3D animator or anything like that. But I made NFTs that you're able to kind of put other NFTs inside of. So like there's a submarine or a picture frame or all these other things. And so you could actually take an NFT that you own, drop the asset inside, and it's almost like a sandwich of an NFT wrapped around another NFT that then you can put inside a fish tank made of NFT, like NFTception. And I was watching somebody on TikTok that's like, look at this groundbreaking NFT thing that you can take this like person and put it in a spaceship. I was like, I did that in November, but they're like saying this is like groundbreaking or whatever. But it's good for me because that's what I wanted to like push it way further. It's not a flat image. Like an NFT can be anything. And so for me, it's been just like a direct dump of my consciousness with just the canvas that is a fish tank. And so yeah, I dropped like a DJ octopus that plays music and like
Yeah.
does parties in the bottom of the ocean and all that stuff. And then the story stuff is getting interesting. I'll act like I didn't create it, but yeah, that was another piece of it, was that there's these robots that seem, or like these monsters. These fish they became telepathic, and then they learned how to send emails, and so they send people emails at their tanks and are slowly like, there's times where they'll just complain and say like, you have red lights on your tank, I'd prefer blue lights, can you change it? And then based on if you change the lights and listen to the fish, then they react differently and all these other things. But yeah, it sounds like up till now, these fish, they found out that there was these people called the builders. And at first we thought we were the builders, and then it's like, no, you're humans. And like, oh, duh, we're fucking humans. But the fish are like, we didn't think you existed anymore. And it's like, wait, what? And then turns out like some kind of, we got these like red alerts coming up in our tanks that were saying like, we found the word human, traces of human, stand by, we're coming to get you. And then it started sending these emails that were seemingly nice but really threatening about like stand by for collection. And then like everyone started freaking out because like it's like, wait, what collection? Like I just wanted a fish tank, what am I doing? And then it said like coming to like the last known location, and it dropped this like weird number, and it was 714, I think it was. And then everyone in the lore channel freaked out and went to tank 714, and the glass was smashed out and no fish were there, and like alarms were going off and in this tank. And so like it's gone from a fish tank to like this like sound stage of chaos,
like ground zero.
Yeah. And so like, I don't know, it's an adventure, and just every day there could be something different, I guess. But yeah, and then we started getting lately like messages from like a third party that's like in a yellow thing that's like seems to be these people that claim they're trapped underground. So like again, it starts off as a fish tank thing and then just goes into crazy chaos, wild adventure stuff. So yeah, we'll see if we can make people feel something for their fish, but it seems like they already kind of like it. So it's like if
they definitely already have. Like it was that TikTok that you shared yesterday of this woman saying that she had a friend that had lost someone or had lost something that meant something, well, and Feesh had touched her enough to where she thought that she could make this person feel better by sending him a Feesh. Yeah. And whether it makes that person feel better or doesn't, it's made her feel a certain type of way. So she thinks that she would make a difference. And she very well might. So yeah. I think it already has. And for a lot of people that haven't had fish in general, like they have different personalities, they eat out of your hand. So I could 100% see the majority of people feeling for these things, especially when you interact with them a lot. Yeah. 2 questions before I get to some of these super chats.
Sure, yeah.
The Feesh, did you get the name from South Park? And did you get some of the ideas from this from SpongeBob Theories?
No. I was honestly, it started with if I want to make somebody feel something, what's the smallest thing that I can do to get a reaction? And I was like, oh, fish, but you can't pet them because I didn't want. But then what if I could push the limits and make you be able to interact with them? Like there's something that daily you can go. It's called a fish communicator. You can go in and interact with each one of your fish daily, every 24 hours. And you can try and pet them. You can try and enter in a staring contest. You can send them like a random emoji. And by doing this, you start to earn points for your kind of building your fish relationship up. And that'll be revealed later how that kind of plays out. I airdropped a bunch of like random items, like a shovel, a blue gem, and some other stuff. I'm about to do a second. Oh crap, here I go, almost leaking stuff. In one of the emails, they made reference to a pink moon because the fish had found an encyclopedia that came out of a portal. Backing up a little bit and explaining that. Every fish tank can have the ability to turn portals on and off, because
I have mine on.
I didn't want people who could only afford one fish to feel like, oh, I've just got one fish. So if you turn on portals, portals will open up randomly on the sides of your tank, and new fish will come in from different because they like to travel. They're social friends, and then your fish might even like exit and go visit other people. And so it's a cool way of getting the full tank of fish experience for not spending any extra money, but sometimes portals, when you open them, have some crazy side effects. Like a boot started flying through one day, once a while, and then that became like an airdrop. And then inside the boot was a note, and that has something that probably will come with it. But anyway, they recently emailed about like a pink moon. Which, do you know what a pink moon is?
Like a blood moon?
Similar. So the first full moon of the year is known as a pink moon. I didn't know this until the fish emailed me about it. And so yeah, everyone's like excited for. I think it's like the 26th of April. But something tells me there's like a pink moon every year. So it'd be weird.
Yeah.
What year the fish are in. But anyway, so yeah, we'll see what happens with portals on the pink moon day. And but I've got an inventory system coming out where you'll be able to actually take these items, so like the shovel, the blue gem, and almost like an old school action adventure game, be able to combine items together potentially, or use an item with your tank, and that will add new layers of functionality. And there's like a secondary market, so if you get extra NFTs or whatever, you can sell those, and it's pretty healthy. And then anything I make royalty-wise for the secondary market, I just buy the floor and then give those items away, so I can keep giving people money back.
That's great. Great leader right there. So I guess, and again, I'm definitely speculating here. I'm also a little tipsy, very tipsy. But you said like you don't know what year the fish are in. Maybe that 714 wasn't just the tank. Maybe that tank was collected because it's year 714 for the fish. They're in like AH time. You know how we're like BC and AD. Maybe AH is after humans because they said we were all extinct. But kind of like us, like we go to the rainforest or like, ice caps melt and we see these things that have been frozen or lost or thought to be extinct. And suddenly, a hunter shoots one or something like that.
Yep.
Again, just ideas I'm spinning around.
That's an interesting theory. Yeah, I'm not sure. We'll have to see. The lore channel is probably all over this right now, though.
If they're here, they could make it part of it.
Yep.
So I asked you if you got the name from South Park or SpongeBob things, because one episode of South Park, I think Kyle or Stan, I think Stan has to do a book report about someone. And then so he gives these, he's like, oh, where are people always looking for work? And he goes to Home Depot and he gives them a book, says, okay, so you have to read this book and write an essay about it. So this guy's like, okay, so this guy, he takes a fish and he goes and he gives his brother a fish and he teaches him how to fish. Like, okay, so he finds a fish. And long story short, he writes his essay in New Mexico or whatever, and he doesn't get it. But I didn't know if that's where you got the name. No. And the SpongeBob theory is when all the creatures on SpongeBob are there because humans had like this nuclear holocaust and they're the result of like radiation. So I don't know if any of that. Yeah, it's a theory.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I didn't pull anything from SpongeBob, but that's interesting, like kind of where we're traveling to. I mean, these fish said they haven't seen humans in ages and they thought they were all gone. So I don't know. But no, the name, again, going to how can I make something unique? Fish, like FISH, has been around for a while. It's pretty popular. Like there's like an animal named after it. And so trying to get like a .com and like a social, and spelling it kind of like in a more loving way, like instead of, it's not fish, it's a fish, like it's kind of fun to say. And so like, again, it's all about kind of doing something that's like gonna sticky, right? And it'll stick with you. And so I think that I've been lucky enough to, it rhymed with Discord. It's a fish cord instead of a Discord. And so like making it just something fun. And then, oh, by the way, congrats. I forgot to say congrats on becoming an executive producer.
Oh yeah.
For a movie. Yeah.
Well, you did it, but we did it.
Yeah, so collectively, anybody that holds a fiche is a collective executive producer of a new movie that's coming out called Shelby Oaks. Just again, like another way, I'm just trying to give people a ride, and I think like the price of a fish is about $100, give or take. But then you get 12 months of airdrops. When we sell out, it'll be a second year of airdrops and content, the story, the random airdrops, random contests, random giveaways. And then just, again, everything I'm doing, I'm trying to just give value back, so that even though for you it was $100 and you might not miss it, or it might be a big lift for you, like I understand, I'm trying to give you just at least 10 times the value felt than it, because I think that NFT projects can be that way and still be successful. For me, it's not about the money. It's about just giving somebody a crazy wild adventure and making them say, like, I remember that time that I jumped into this NFT project. I remember the time maybe my fish died. I remember the time my fish had their tank neighbor get their glass smashed in. Like, we're creating memories that will be lasting, that are all connected to an NFT. And I think that's where NFTs kind of come into play. Like, it's not about just another profile picture. It can be a lot more than that.
Hacking people's biology for nostalgia and sentiment.
Yeah.
Very good. When we're done, give me your email. I have so many ideas for lore that I don't care if you don't use any of them. I just want like also give me an email that is not important because I'm going to spam with a bunch of ideas.
I mean, I can message you on Telegram too, like whatever you want to do. Like,
okay, cool beat. So moving on, Rigged says, "Hey to both of you. What are your thoughts on the web app coming?" He says, "Is it a game changer, a positive or a negative way at all?" I of course think it's a hugely positive way for multiple reasons, but I think they need to hear from someone other than me. What are your thoughts?
Sure. Yeah. I think it's good. I think it's a thing that probably everyone probably looked the least amount at of all the developments, because there's not like a direct one-to-one as far as the token pumping or whatever. But I do think having the web app will make it more accessible for people that can't be on their phones all day. Like you'll be able to just pop open a tab at work and check your collections or do a drop. It also looks like it's probably going to be like, once you get people to like a foundational like web platform, you can do a lot more on top of it. And so I think that the mobile app will still be around, but I think the web app will probably be where a lot of people frequent. You could even in theory, I haven't used it, but you could probably use the web version on your phone, even just on a mobile browser. And maybe that's better for you, whatever. But I do think that showroom editability with a computer processor is going to be a big win, especially for some of the folks that want to really build crazy unique showrooms. And so I think that's a big plus. Another thing is that technically it's outside of the ecosystem of app stores, and so they could technically discount gyms at 10% or whatever for things. They could technically do gift cards for holidays and get all of that revenue captured, and then do whatever. That technically they could do some interesting burning mechanics if they're saving the 30% they used to have to spend, things like that. So there's a lot of interesting things that can happen. Again, I don't know if any of these things are going to happen. But yeah, I think that the web platform is a net positive thing. I don't know who would be like, web platform, it's all over. Like, I don't know who's going to think of like a negative way. It's just another way to kind of get people to use it. Yeah, and I just think that there'll probably be a lot more they can do to iterate. And I think they even said there'll be some stuff that's web version exclusive, because the mobile platforms, mobile platforms are great because you can get the accessibility and the discoverability of like those app stores that have millions and millions of users. The downside is you're competing with millions and millions of users. However, making it on the web, I think it removes like the rules that you have to follow in some cases on certain things. Like Apple will push back and say, oh, you can't do this, or Android's less, but Apple definitely says like, you can't do this, or you have to use this platform, or use this, or use that. And so being able to like, the lighting and stuff might make your phone like melt to a crisp if it's all rendering in high fidelity on the web. Even having a baseline computer, you can probably get a lot more out of it without it melting in your hand. And so you could use it for longer, even at the bare minimum, but you might have better rendering on a mobile or a desktop rather than mobile. So again, overall, I think it's a net positive, and I think that we'll get a good mix of user bases on both platforms.
Yeah, agreed. Dan Chavez says going back and forth from collectibles to OMI is a brilliant strategy. I agree. So Jim Moraine says, if listing on Coinbase or Binance listings aren't happening due to finances, could the community help fund it? Are there legal issues with that? So for me, I
don't think that's the holdup, though. I don't think that's the thing. Like, so again, speculating. I think that David said basically like they don't need just another. Like, this is not. Let's pump it to the moon and then never be a thing again. They're trying to build, like, they probably got, I think with some of these IPs, like 10 years worth of content. That's how big some of these catalogs are, right? So they don't want to make a little flash in the pan. They want to do things that are more strategic. And so reading between the lines, right? And so hyper speculation, like put on your tinfoil hats for this, but like they chose IMX for a reason. I believe the reason why is twofold. One, I think that IMX, when all is said and done, will be one of the premier blockchains for NFTs, if not already kind of becoming that thing. So that's where you want to head. The second thing is they've actually thought about one of the major problems facing artists in this space is that if I deploy an NFT to OpenSea, for example, and I don't do it in a certain way, one, I might not even own the contract, and two, I only get a royalty, which is one of the huge magic things for an artist, on OpenSea. And so if I'm with Veve and say I'm Disney, that this is kind of a reason why they might not want interoperability would be is that they couldn't capture that fee. Immutable X, though, has a global fee. So it's not tied to the IMX marketplace. It's tied to the entire blockchain because there's like a directory that they can register for. And so when they're minted on IMX, they can actually be a part of this globalized fee. And so Disney can collect whenever it's sold across the entire blockchain. And so that actually is a huge plus for these folks to go there. What's more interesting than that, though, is that Coinbase is a backer of IMX. It's weird that they're also coming out with an NFT marketplace. I wonder what blockchain they might be using. I wonder if OMI is accepted on IMX marketplace already.
It is.
What could happen if there's another kind of like sister NFT marketplace or whatever? It'd also be interesting if they ended up become on OpenSea, which sounds from the last interview that they're like in the final stages of doing. Much like if Polygon can be accepted and Matic can be accepted on OpenSea, I wonder what other tokens from IMX can also come over for the OpenSea side of the things. And so, yeah, again, if all these things are coming together at a really interesting time, falling just into place and just the right things, that I think there's going to be a lot of doors that, if not open immediately, could easily be opened later.
Yeah. I think that Reese had mentioned that, I think in his interview with Akil Patterson, that he has, or that Ecomi has hired a exchange expert, someone that does this for a living and knowing when you should get on exchange, when you shouldn't. Again, if it had to do with like money, they could raise that in a second if they didn't have it, which again, I'm sure they do. But there's rhymes and reasons that I'm speculating as to why they're doing things the way they are, as you just so eloquently put.
Yeah, I think it's not a matter of if, it's just the timing when it makes sense. Because I think Veve wants more than just the flash in the pan. They're looking for something that actually can be a strategic business relationship rather than just putting on just another exchange. I think people that want to exchange, as we described earlier in this thing, like being able to buy a Todd or buy a DeLorean for gems and then flip it immediately for the same base price for OMI. Ta-da! Like, do you need the exchange? I think you're going to start to see like the millions and millions of people that are on Veve be, my thing sold. Wait, it sold for OMI. What's OMI? Oh, I can use this for wagers. Cool. Like that's really what you want to do, is have the super popular app that then turns their user base into crypto holders, whether they know it or not, kind of thing.
Yeah, and to add on that, if you wanted to sell for either OMI or gems, you didn't care, I'm sure you could put it for either. But if you just wanted to sell for gems, I'm sure there'll be an option for that. If you're like anti-crypto for whatever reason, I'm sure there'll be an add-on, a drop-down option, just sell for gems. I forgot what I was going to say with the gems and the OMI and all good. So Houses, maybe a dumb question, but mobile play to earn gaming will likely be huge. Can you speak to the mechanics of why a small company would use OMI over Ethereum as their in-app currency utility?
Sure. It would be really interesting if you went into Ethereum, which is kind of uncharted waters to some degree. Yes, you have a bigger ecosystem. However, if OMI has been done in a completely regulatory compliant and has a global payout feature built into Veve, as well as some of their other partners could utilize same things, because Veve and OMI have kind of like done the vetting work for you. It allows you to operate in a lot more regulatory way. And so there's some interesting things there. I think the more likely choice probably is that a game could use both. The flip side also is that Veve is a top grossing app with 2 million users. When we go to the end of the year, likely could be 10 plus million. As we open a localization, it could be even huge or even larger than that. And so do you use Ethereum for that can be like this wild card kind of used for anything kind of thing, but it has very, very difficult kind of like on-ramping still, unless you go through Coinbase or whatever? Or could I sell something on Veve, get the OMI, layer 2 it into a game, and now I'm already in. So you're kind of using this user base that the OMI fam or the Veve folks to kind of steer towards your game. And so I think it's an option either way. I think it's less of a or and more of a and that most businesses would do.
Okay, that is a great assessment, and that's something that I would not have been able to answer. So I'm glad that he used that super chat here while you were here.
No worries.
As me home says, the masterclass has begun. Where you have anyone
like you all alligators. No, just the hashtag alligator.
So how does one buy a Feesh?
If you just go to, it depends. If you want the full experience of the blockchain and you're comfortable using something like MetaMask, which it shouldn't be as intimidating. I think anyone should at least dabble, but it can be an expensive lesson. So I'm happy if you're nervous to handhold you a little bit through, just reach out to me, or on the Feesh Cord. So feeshcord.com. The community is insane. Like right now, if anyone's jumping in there, it went from me kind of doing support for 500 plus people to the community's like, oh, I ran into that. Here's how you do this. Here's a screenshot. Here's this. So I'm insanely appreciative of the community. But in theory, if you know how to do all that, just go to feeshes.com, and then you can scroll to the very bottom and pick how many fish you would like, hit mint, and they'll be in your wallet as soon as the transaction processes. If that is intimidating to you, again, I'm trying to make this as approachable as possible. It is less about the money for me. I actually take a hit when I do, like I pay extra gas by minting and then sending it to you, but I just don't care. And so if you want to trade Veve collectibles or OMI, you just tell me how many fish you want. I will then go and do a quote, say, here's how much it is with gas. And then we find the matching amount for that. You transfer, I transfer, and then you're ready to go fishing.
Ready to go fishing. I love that. Thank you, Heavily. He's saying thanks for your time. For the
I appreciate it. You don't have to pay to say thanks, but thank you.
Yeah, he's great. We love our fam here. So when you said you've been buying a lot of OMI recently over the past few months, not to hodl, not to save, but it's to use.
Yep.
But at what point does the OMI get so expensive? Does it get so high? Because we said OMI has the ability to be fractionalized. No real reason to have it fractionalized unless it gets to be, a decent amount. At what point do you say, hey, maybe I shouldn't be spending some of this stuff? Or at what point do you say, like, oh, actually, I should invest into other things instead of just using it for whatever?
Yeah, I mean, like I am wild. I am like almost 100% in OMI, except for some Ethereum for features and buying art from people that I really, really enjoy on like the Ethereum side of things. But I mean, I really, really like the collectibles. There are some that I'm like, I could probably pass on that one. But like even the artists that we got just a few days ago, like Gary Basement stuff, like I know a lot of people were like, it's the same thing like 6 times. But like for me, I really like his body of work. And so being able to own a set of his first release coming to Veve, there's a chance that we'll get more from that artist. There's a chance we'll get other ones. So like much like people are into FAs of comics, I really like the art side. Not saying like every single piece of art that comes to Veve will be my thing, but I really, really enjoy so far what we've got. And I think that's coming a lot from like David's side of the house and like his collecting, his eye for that kind of thing, and the artists that he's grown to appreciate. And in a way, I think like Veve at the end of the day is like a passion project for him and Dan. That definitely still it's creating a business, but like this is a way for them to create the joy of collecting that David and Dan have kind of had for so long, and then expose them to things that they've enjoyed collecting and making it accessible. Like taking these artists they've loved, that it's really, really hard to get some of their pieces, and put it in a way that even though there might be 10,000 or even 2,000 or just 800 of, it's still more accessible than some of the physical versions. So for me to be able to have these unique pieces, I think as we go into like the Veveverse and other things like that, having these unique pieces, I think will make showrooms stand out. And for right now, it's like, there's 800, but there's still 100 left on the market. I think it's just a matter of time before that stops being a thing. And it's just yet another thing that we've not seen, is where like a collectible has gone extinct and found forever homes for all 800 pieces or 2,000 pieces or 7,500 pieces. Like these extinction events, I've seen other economies. I've seen this happen where there's just everyone is locked up with people that actually care about them. And so there's only 1 or 2 a year that surface that you have an opportunity to grab. And so for me, like those rare, unique art pieces are great. And so back to your original question, like why am I continuing to buy OMI? Because I want to use it for tax reasons. Having some of my other stuff stay beyond 12 months and having that kind of like rotating dates that I've got to take care of for like long-term versus short-term, it's all probably going to become long-term. So like I'm just keeping track of it for funsies, but land is coming. I'm sure that everyone's going to hit like soon. Like all this stuff is like 8 years out or whatever. Like just don't be surprised when things creep up on you, right? Like, but yeah, land I think is going to be huge. I think accessories are going to be huge, and they're 100% burn when used with OMI. So like, why wouldn't I support the tokenomics and burn some stuff rather than using fiat? And then yeah, there's tons of reasons for, in my mind. Also, just like where it's at now, what were we at 0.003 or whatever? There's going to be a time where it's 10 cents, 20 cents, whatever, as people have kind of hinted at. Why wouldn't I put money in now at the current rate, and let it multiply up, and then have the crazy spending power that I can go right in with OMI? It just makes sense to me. So do I want more Ethereum or Chainlink or any of these other like things that people put like those? There's some technologies that interest me, but like I just think that OMI and Veve is fun, and it's got so many utility, like so much utility that's coming, that I just buying in now. It is to me almost like buying in 2 or 3 years ago when it was like four zeros in front, right? Like I still think it's a crazy value, and but it's all perspective. I could be making a huge mistake. I mean, it has gone down since I bought it, but like that's short term to me, and I think it's just a matter of time. Like people love to scream about how there's no utility, but like there was a time where there were no cars. There was a time where there's no roads. Like, why would you need a car if you don't have a road? Like, but I mean, if I could buy a car before there were roads, like I'm gonna be sitting pretty when the roads show up, right? So, I just think it's a matter of perspective. And at the end of the day, I really, really enjoy a lot of these collectibles. And for me, I've got like a wall of physicals that I've bought like in the last year or so. But I've got limited space. Veve lets me have unlimited space for the most part. We've yet to see like kind of restrictions on that. And so I can take my collection and show it off wherever I go. And to me, that's something I'm passionate about and excited about.
Yeah, I love that it's disruptive on letting people saying like, oh, I have no more room for physical stuff. I'd love this item, but I can't fit it in my house. Versus there's unlimited amount of space. Very disruptive. I love that. You were mentioning art before and how you really love it. There was some, I guess, pushback, some controversy on the new artist that we had, Gary Baseman. I don't know if you've seen some of his art. Now, I love art. I'm really anti like government, really, and people telling me what to do. Kind of like you said, like, oh, who says I can't do that? F you. In your mind, whether it's for Feesh or whether it's for anything, is there some artist that you would stay away from, like as a Feesh CEO, or you would advise the team, like, hey, this artist is too controversial? Or do you think that because art is such a great big part of the First Amendment, that I believe, like expression of self, that you shouldn't shy away from anything? And what are your reasons?
I think there's probably some internal stuff that they use as a baseline. But I mean, I think art is really an interesting thing, because sometimes it's done to invoke a response. It's done to make you feel something, and not always is it a clear dotted line of like what you should feel, right? Like you might look at something, and I think you were showing on your stream like the other day, like there was something with like a skeleton hanging out of almost like a pinata type thing that he had done. Is that the piece that you're talking about?
Yeah, that was like,
I mean, you could. The flip side could be like you could watch the news and see some shit that's just as hardcore, right? Like it's just it's not, and it's to me, at least what I saw from your screen, I've not seen the piece one-to-one. It is something, but like in a way, it's like you can interpret that as like you're on display, but your guts are you're literally like what you're made of is on display, kind of thing. Like there's lots of different ways to interpret it that are less gory or gruesome. It is a mainstream app, so somebody I could see someone saying like, oh, that's too much. Kids could be using the app or this or that. But like kids are also playing Fortnite and other things. Like you can't just because you don't want them to see it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. And so like there's tons of different things. I think they should leave it to the market to decide. And I think if there's a drop that seems to be like pushing the limits too much, and it doesn't sell, then they would do what they've done similarly with like the Captain Americas or whatever. And like after so much time, they cut the supply, and now it's a more rare thing. And like then they learn that like there's not a market for that, right? I do think that it's an app that's something for everyone, and I'm not saying like that there are people out there that are like I'm not like, you know what, give me the guts. I need the art with the guts everywhere. Like that's not my thing. But like if I see a piece and it makes me feel some kind of way, then I want to have it. And so like there's pieces that like Tara McPherson, I think, just did a physical print. It was only 200 of what she released in Veve, and so like I grabbed that, and it came, and it was a sub 100. I was shocked that I got like what I got. Now I am trying to get the matching digital version. I'm not going to say what it is, because when I've said stuff before about like my Labbit numbers and other things, like people want like, oh, I bought this for 500 and now I'm trying to sell it for 75,000 because Brock will buy it. Nope, I won't buy it. You can enjoy that piece for yourself. But yeah, anyway, seeing that piece come to Veve, and then seeing the physical, like I had to have that, so I did grab that. But I do think that there's just, when I see it, and I've got friends that aren't on Veve or aren't on Veve yet, that I really like their work. And so yeah, when they drop an NFT, if I've got the money to do it, I like grabbing those things, because to me, the future is, I've got an AR glasses, you've got an AR glasses, and even if we've never met face to face, I can start to see these like balloons around you, if you will, of the things that you're most passionate about or your specialist pieces. And so I can start to know who you are visually before we've even gotten to discuss. And that can be icebreaker stuff, because I'm like, oh my God, you love so-and-so's piece. Like I love so-and-so's piece. So yeah, I just, that's where I think all this goes. And for me, grabbing art before the rest of the packs here and having these really, really unique pieces that when I look back at them, or looking at my collection and seeing them, or there's even ways to do like showrooms similar to Veve and stuff like that. Yeah, I think that I want to be surrounded by things that make me resonate or feel a certain way. And sometimes for me, at least, and I'm not bashing anything, because some people are all about superheroes. But I don't need 10 superheroes. I'm actually the opposite. And I would like to throw this out there that I really, really want villains. Please, Veve, bring villains.
Yes. Bane, please.
Yes, I want villains, but I also want like anti-heroes. Bring me the Venom, like the FA Venom, like badass. I want Magneto comic. Thank you so much, but I would like the Magneto that does like some kind of magnetic blast, and we use that surround sound that we know is in the showroom to sound like metal is like bowing inside, so you feel like your showroom is about to implode on itself. Like, please, I want villains. I want badass things. Heroes are nice, but villains is where it's at. Anyway, yes, art. I like art, but that's not to say like I every little piece that I see will be like my favorite thing. But I've been lucky enough to run in some circles of some really talented folks. I also want to throw out there, if you're ever in California, GABA Gallery is the best place to go to if you want to see some art in California. They're in LA. My friend Jason runs it, and it's super rad. So anyway, prop to him.
Cool. No, I get it. You have there's somebody that they bought a physical Todd, and they happened to get number 100. And it was well known that Jeremy Padour had a number 100 as well. And the guy's like, hey, do you think Jeremy would want this? It's like, oh, yeah, I could see him probably wanting this. You know, like what are you looking to sell it for? And he's like, I don't really know. And I was like, well, I mean, I don't know, just, give me an offer and I'll bring it to him. And he says like $15,000. I was like, listen, I don't even want to bring that to him, because a normal Todd in general is like $1,000. Yeah. like give or take. A sub 100 might be like 1,500, like maybe 2,000. But to have a number 100, 15,000, like, so I brought it to him and he said like, no thanks. I was like, yeah, see, I told you. Like I screenshotted it. He said no thanks. Yeah. So yeah, we don't sympathize with your situation over there, saying that people try to get stuff.
Well, the funny thing is, like, it's the one. There's two numbers that I collect for the most part, and one is the 265 Labbits, and it's just as many as I can get because of the Robin Williams lot number. And again, Robin Williams didn't even have like number 265. It's only important because I've decided that it's important to me. But people will grab them and say like, oh yeah, you can get it for like 10 G's. I'm like, you can keep it. But then the other interesting number that I keep is the Jermaine Rogers number 72s. And funny enough, we're on podcast number 72. So that in of itself is I'm sure you planned that out. So thank you.
Sure.
Yeah. Yep.
Some of these just happened by accident. Like Hello K was number 69. I was like, listen, K, this is like the most.
The way it was going, I at one point I thought I was going to be 69, and I was just going to say nice the whole thing. So it's probably better that I didn't end up on number 69.
It's all good.
Yeah.
I love how we're being compared to Tekken characters. You're King and I'm Eddie. So we're talking about Veve and Feesh. So a food update, I had half of a 7-Eleven pizza and a protein shake today. And then I've had a couple of, as far as shots, it might have been like 6 shots of like Tesla Tequila so far. What have you eaten today? Mr. Brock McBlockchain?
I normally intermittently fast for breakfast, and then so I didn't eat anything until lunch. For lunch, I had an enchilada bake that I just cooked up because I'm kidding. It was like a microwave food because I was like, I'm really low on time. I need to eat something, so I'm not eating too healthy today. But yeah,
cool. Yeah, I don't know about you, but for me in Tekken, I did like King, but I also like Yoshimitsu. Do you ever play that game?
I did play Tekken, but it was so long ago when I was like the first like arcade that I played. So do not quiz me. I will just. Okay. I wore this for King. Yeah, that's what it is.
Okay,
So
disregard.
Glad they caught it.
Super chat from Wendy saying, "Thanks, Randy and Brock, for all you do and being positive voices for Veve and NFT community."
Back at you, Wendy. Thank you for everything that you do. Love her content, and she's had me on too, so I appreciate her.
Yeah, she's great. We love her. It's a lot of really good things. So we had a super chat, or it wasn't super. It was just a thing from before I wanted to get into. I forget what it was, but wow, got Ernie Malas. Thank you for that. Super chat saying, "I agree. First time I've heard Brock. Randy, you must sing a chorus of 'Have a Drink on Me,' then use this to have some drinks with Brock." I don't know that song, "Have a Drink on Me." Ernie's probably going to unsubscribe now. But I don't know. Like I sing a lot usually for my Patreon member shout outs and stuff. You've never sang, like, would you do karaoke? We've also talked about the party on the 15th, which
it's in New York, right?
Yeah.
All right, I'll see what I can do.
That'd be great.
There's plane tickets available and whatnot.
First appearance, Brock. We'll talk about getting you, putting you up somewhere.
Sounds good.
That'd be really great. And again, thank you so much for having us. I'll totally use this to get, although it's going to be open bar on that party, so you can get pretty much whatever you want. I can't find, oh, here it is. So Melinda Murray said, "Feesh is a good title. I imagine Kraken with a yellow mask on," or Feesh leader, as she says. In your opinion, what makes a great leader? Like good or bad? Like, it doesn't matter. It could be like FDR, it could be like Elon Musk, or you can go opposite end. Great, as in like uniter. It could be like Adolf Hitler, or it could be like Mussolini or Stalin.
Nice bait with the "you can pick Hitler if you want." I'm probably gonna pass on that.
I mean, like, as far as someone like, wow, this person is like the ultimate uniter, and they just use that for good or whatever.
Yeah.
What characteristics do you think make one?
Someone asked me something similar on Twitter of like, who's my role model and stuff, and just like, it sounds weird. I get it, but like, I really don't have a role model. I just my whole life has just been people telling me I can't do something, and then my reaction is fucking watch me. Like, I will learn it, I will figure it out, I will do it if I'm passionate about doing it. An example of that, when I was in college, I had started doing like concerts and with my with college and Gail, and then I said, "Hey, let me throw a concert," and they're like, "What? You don't know how to throw concerts?" I was like, "Yeah, I do. I'll figure it out. What's the hardest concert to throw?" And they told me rap, and I was like, "Oh, perfect. I'm throwing a rap concert." And then it went on to pack the place out, like at the local venue. Like, I just believe that you can do anything you want, and it's just a matter of having your passion and chasing that. And when you're chasing anything but your raw passion is usually when things don't go so great. So yeah, I don't know. As far as who's a great leader, I don't think anyone's cracked the code. I've had good teachers, but I really think that the moment that you put somebody on, like, this is a really good model of a person, you're looking at just the things that they are portraying and maybe not the whole picture. And so that can lead you astray. And so I think instead it's good to live in your own kind of passion and take things that you enjoy and pieces from other things that and remix them into more of you. Like, how can you steal a good idea here, or take this and remix it, and now that is your thing. And that's what I think is more. So, like, not trying to dodge the question, Hitler was a great option as you chose. That's weird. That's weird that you would have said that. But
I didn't choose it. I just put it as an option.
You heard it here first. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, I just don't. I don't know. I think that people are flawed, and when you understand that and give them the grace to try and work through those flaws, then they'll show you what they're made out of. And I think that it's just better to be your own thing. Yeah, David, you does have 6 fish, I believe.
So to push back a little bit on what you're saying, like, just because someone is a good example of one thing doesn't mean that deep down they might not be a good example of another thing.
Mm-hmm.
In BoJack Horseman, which is a great series if you haven't watched it, there's this one woman, Diane, this one character that says she doesn't believe in deep down because all you really are your actions. Doesn't matter how you feel deep inside. It's like Batman, like it's what you do that defines you. Like in that episode of Drake and Josh, Josh has a like website, has a forum called like Miss Daisy or something, where he gets into character, he wears a dress and he puts on a wig, he puts on like makeup, and he answers like everyone's questions and problems as Miss Daisy. Like on the outside looking in, like Josh, that's a little weird, not gonna lie. But he also really helps people in the actions that he does.
Yeah, so I'm not saying. I guess I wasn't trying to say that because someone does something good, they are flawed, and so so the flaw outweighs the other. I just think that like putting too much faith in just one person. Like I do believe in like the great, like the overall, like people are good at heart most of the time. I think that there are very few supervillains in our day and age. Not that there are none, but I do think that just like saying like that's a great leader. If we could just emulate that only, that leader in that moment might have been perfectly aligned to what was needed for that situation, but that taking them out of that situation and into another, it might not be the thing. And so I think that it's better to be adaptable and like instead of trying to wait for the leader to show up, be the best that you can and try and push things further and empower others to achieve more and collectively get there. So it's like if I'm all about anti-heroes, I would rather be the anti-leader and just help and be the water that everything needs me to mold into to be, rather than waiting for, if we just had FDR, everything would fix. Like I just think that like things are always unique. And so
I think it's good to have multiple sources. Like if you want to be really good at like, basketball, then, follow like LeBron James and Michael Jordan. Sure. But if you want to be really good at like golf, it's Tiger Woods, boxing is Ali and Tyson. So I get it. No one person is like the greatest at everything. But in general, most of the times people that you want to be leaders, typically they don't want to be leaders themselves, but you yourself are a leader in Ecomi and in Feesh, just in life in general. And some people will put you kind of on that pedestal. Did you want to be this person that you are? Or I guess by your reaction, it's just something that you happen to fall into.
Yeah, right? No, I mean, like, it's not about fame or anything. Like, I mean, people ask me like, or posted even here, like, why is he wearing a mask? Like, there's a number of reasons. One is I've got kids, and so like people in crypto are crazy, and so like it's a 1-foot fence. But knowing my history, you could find out exactly who I am if you cared enough, and I don't think it's that important. And then 2, it's just like it's not about me. Like I'm going to just give even with Feeshas, for example, and I'm not trying to promote it or anything like that, but like I constantly am so impulsive that I will create airdrops for something or create like an event for, because we've done these like events for like Valentine's Day, March Madness. I keep just trying to push more. And instead of saying like, oh, this could check the box for the whole month, I'll say, nope, here, have it right now. I'll think of something better. Like, so I'm just, even with the whole, like these secrets that I'm doing, like I have this creativity and these things that I'd rather spell out and give away and change the game, because now everyone's got them and it forces me to be even better. So that's just in my DNA of like, I just want to give, like, I'm good. Let me help somebody else be good. And then we can change the game again. It's way more fun if someone's saying I'm playing 5D chess, for me to go, here's how to play 5D chess. Now let's really play and level up the game.
Like you did with OMI and the utility and so on. Yeah.
Yeah, I would just rather like, again, it's not fun if the deck's stacked where I'm playing at a different level and everyone else is losing and I'm benefiting from it. Like I just can't, my insides just don't work that way. And so I'd much rather just say, here's everything. So yeah, did I mean to be a leader or whatever? Like, one, no, I would question if I'm a leader. I question if I'm an artist. I mean, I just am. And if you see me as a leader, Thanks for that pressure, I guess. I will probably let you down some way because I'm the leader that will also tell you to go fuck yourself on Twitter because I'm just me. Like, I'm a human, not really. But yeah, anyway. So yeah, I'm probably the worst leader. But have fun with that if you see me as a leader. But I am. In my heart, just about trying to help others, and it is very easy to live in a state of scarcity, thinking that everyone's going to screw you over, especially when NFTs are full of rugs and other stuff, and it's rough. But I'd much rather like educate and help you feel confident and comfortable, so that you can take whatever's special about you and bring it into this Web3 crazy adventure that we're on. So
yeah, I like giving people hope. I like that you do that as well. Like there was it just came to me right now as you said that. There's one scene in Angels in the Outfield where George Knox is George Knox is talking to a young, oh God, I forget his name. He's the dude that he directed Don Juan. He's the dude that was in the last Dark Knight movie, Batman. Joseph Gordon-Levitt. So he talks to a young Joseph Gordon-Levitt, says, if you go through life thinking that every person you meet will one day let you down, you'll end up like me. And it's saying like just a sad, old, tired man. And it's like, so I'm glad that you're able to help inculcate really good feelings into people.
Yeah, I mean, I will keep trying, but also like, don't wait for the hero. Just do you, and if you need help, there's more than enough people in this community, especially to do that.
Yeah. He says that years from now, would you do an unmasking for some type of charity?
Sure, but it's going to be the biggest disappointment and letdown. I'm just a bread cat from space underneath here, so nothing.
I don't know. Like, you remember not Home Depot? What's Tim Allen? You know that guy.
Home Improvement.
Home Improvement. Yeah. They had that one character that just
Willson.
they didn't. Yeah, it was. They never showed.
I'm actually Willson. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. I don't know. It's not that big of a deal. It's a cheap parlor trick. If I wear a mask, then it's mysterious and you'll listen to what I have to say, rather than if I didn't, then I'm just some dude.
No, that's I understand that. There's one episode. I know I bring up Rick and Morty a lot, or I feel like I have this stream where it's this one guy that's like he's a really good pillar of like the community. And he's like a worm. Like they visit a reality where everyone's worms or something. And after that person dies, again, really big, he did a lot of charity work. It turns out that this worm happened to have like in a shoebox in his place, like pictures of like underage worms, and it like wasn't good. And someone's like, oh, we need to like tell people about this. And then the one senior person says like, no. You tell people about this, it'll undo all the good this worm has done. So they have to people have to believe that he's like the worm he was instead of the worm he really was, as kind of like a Harvey Dent thing. So you believe that Batman in that movie made the right call, letting Batman take the blame and believing that Harvey Dent was like the real hero instead of the criminal he was.
I mean, I think there's lots in real life. I mean, it's easy in a comic book to go to like give you here's darkness, here is light. Everyone but I do think that especially with Veve, it's made the key word that I kind of hammer in on is accessibility, right? Like a lot of these comics I've never touched on. If we get Spawn, I'm going to lose my fucking mind, because as a kid, I would go to a grocery store and I would read. I didn't have the money to buy the comic books, but I would sit there while my mother would grocery shop and I would just read the comic. But there would be weeks where like either somebody bought them all or they didn't get them, so I missed there are holes in the story that I would love to fill. So Todd McFarlane, if anything, like we asked earlier, like what can the community do? Like let us all please just beg the shit on Twitter out of Todd McFarlane to bring Spawn comic books and Spawn. I want a badass fucking Spawn statue with glowing eyes, with like the seeming like it'd be so good. And Veve could pull that off, like because you've got the modeling of Todd McFarlane, and then you do the digitization and push it further where toys can't do these things. It'd be so good. Anyway, but Spawn comic books or something like that, like where there's these grays and lights. I'm very much going on a tangent. You said, do I think that Batman made the right call in that? I think in life there are times where you could easily stand up. And even me, like there's been times where like I've got dirt on somebody that like they treated me such and such way, and then things have gone on. Like rehashing it, almost like, what is the point? Like I'm fine to be seen as a certain thing and not clear up the truth if it doesn't really affect me one way or the other. Like I've moved on. Like what does it really do to like bring somebody back down? I think their actions will play out of who they really are, and I know who I really am, so it is what it is. I think in the moment sometimes, yeah, you got to be bigger than just like the nitpicky, like I'm actually perfect because and then it's like a little spat, like I don't know. Yeah, and I think Batman is interesting because the character has to live all of these different layers of himself. And so yeah, like as much as Batman, that moniker was taking the fall, he could still go as Bruce Wayne in the meantime. Like, you know what I mean? Like it wasn't both of that. Like so he had a way of dodging it. So yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. I love movies like that with lots of layers. I think the best things in life have lots of layers to them.
Same.
Yeah.
Like you like anti-heroes, so I imagine you probably like Punisher. You probably like Deadpool.
Yes.
Is Spawn like your favorite though? Is that the one?
I really like Spawn. And again, it's the story is just unique, I think. And there's just complexities there. But yeah, I think Punisher is cool. I've just always been like, you can have your like Superman's not my person. Like I'm waiting for your Venom, your Carnage, your Punisher, and even like I'm not huge on Star Wars or Star Trek. I'll purposely troll that's like the different ones, which I don't know, that's not going to get me a lot of fans here or whatever. But like I would much rather like, but I think in my brain, I was always like, Boba Fett's way more badass than all the other ones. And then now you're seeing like these Boba Fett characters. I think there's a lot of like love for the anti-villain and the anti-heroes, the gray folks, rather than like Superman good, Lex Luthor bad. So like I don't know. I just think that there's lots of if Vive's really something for everyone, I think it's time to bring out some villains and anti-heroes and stuff.
Yeah, agreed. We got the Deadpool, which is great. I'd love a Punisher.
I want like a mini season from Veve where like, so we're coming off almost season 3, do season 4. That's just like, it's an abridged season. It's all villains, all the Disney villains, talking Ursula, Maleficent,
talk dirty to me, Brock.
all of the Disney villains, let them out. Then have your Marvel villains show up, have your DC villains show up. So much good. And then outside of that, like let some of the darker sides of art come out. Like let some of the artists that you've already got in the fold, like your let Frank have it, like what a darker kind of like a villain Labbit, even like mix it all in there, and it would be just like this badass, like you were either there or you weren't part of Vive's like history. And yeah, I just think it'd be crazy.
And you could go different ways with it. You could go like not so dark, where it's like, oh, you could take like Gargamel from Smurfs, or you could take, some like kid friendly villains, like Skeletor, or
even
you
if
can
we
go
had
like
Looney Tunes, you could do not the Roadrunner, the other one, the Coyote, like
Coyote,
cool. Like and again, maybe not villain full out, but like trying to eat the
Roadrunner. Like, even like Sylvester trying to eat Tweety Bird, like.
Or end it, like flip the script. If somehow Warner Brothers had this movie with like these kind of characters that like had some kind of like stick thing, and then like at the end you drop like some villain that you couldn't even say their name, that would be really cool.
God, that'd be amazing. That'd be like I would. There was a thing on Cartoon Network like years ago. They had like a football match. It wasn't really a football match. People like having like tailgating, a cookout. It was like the greatest hits of, I think, Tom and Jerry. And it was like there was Team Tom and there was Team Jerry, and which ones had like the greatest hits? Because every now and then Tom would get a good lick in. He'd hit Jerry with a pen. He'd like electrocute. Somehow. Even something like that would be great. But there's so many dark ones too that you can go super hardcore with.
Yeah.
Even just like slasher, like Michael Myers, Freddy Krueger, Jason Voorhees.
Or classic movie monsters from, I don't know, Universal type things. That would be cool if we had that.
Oh, like the Mummy and
Frankenstein.
Dracula.
Yep.
Do we have Godzilla and King Kong?
That I don't know.
Okay.
I know that there is probably some hype from that metaverse that we got like an early preview from Future Tech Live. But from what I heard from rumblings within the ethos is that like that was such a to the minute delivery, like that there was some kind of like miscommunication that a lot of the things Veve would have liked to put in didn't, and some generic assets went in instead, kind of thing, because they were just pre-built. And so I think there was some misinformation as far as if we have that license or not. I'm sure that with Veve succeeding as it can, like conversations are likely different than what they would have gone before. So, and if it was a license they wanted, but I think that that's shown up other places too. So I don't know if that's something that would be exclusive to Veve, not even in the same format. So I don't know. But yeah, I just had this weird flashback. I don't know if you ever saw it, but we are similar-ish in age. MTV used to have this thing called Animation Sushi, or Cartoon Sushi, I think it was. And they had this show called The Max that was like a purple guy with yellow claws and these little like white dudes that were like the bad guys. This is Wild Story, and it came from a comic book. That would also be cool IP. Like some of these like fringe comics, like I know we think of like the two big ones, and that we've got the one and the other one, who knows? And then, but there's these other like these independent things. Like even Alien vs Predator has a comic book that I would love to those comic books, or Alien vs Predator as like an IP. That would be insane.
Dude, there's a lot of great comic books that have amazing lore that like nobody knows about. They have like Avatar: The Last Airbender, Legend of Korra, Power Rangers. My Little Pony.
There's a 2D poster, which, mind you, I'm going to continue to say most of NFTs right now are 2D. Yet in Veve they do poorly. I wonder what happens when interoperability, but whatever. But if you look at the one from Decon, I think it's like The Life is Good or whatever. I forget the name is escaping me of it. I really, really like it. The artist of that, if you look them up, you'll find some interesting things, like, I don't know, a comic book series that they did. So that would be cool if that came to Veve.
Yeah, I think the way that I think Jeremy Padua has said that, this is making collectors out of people that didn't know they wanted to be collectors.
Yes.
Again, like that, those comic book series, like G.I. Joe, My Little Pony, Power Rangers, Avatar, all that. There's so many good stories. Like I feel bad for people that are like too cool for comics, or they don't read, because there's so much amazing content out there, and they're missing it. And like I just want to like shake them, be like, no, you've got to read it now.
Yeah. I also think that Veve's like, so accessibility, again, it's making these comics accessible to new generations. They can grab it from their phones. It can pass down in mint condition. It doesn't have to be in a shoebox or lost in a house fire. Like there's tons of things that are good, the good sides about it. And now the way that they've put this, like, to me, it feels like very finely tweaked experience of being able to tilt the comic book to what's comfortable for you and all these other things that are really, really interesting. So like, that's all cool. But I think you could evolution even other collectibles that we've not yet seen inside Veve. We've got stamps, but with Disney, like, it's only a moment of time, I think, before we get like film reel pieces, like slides of film in like a 2D thing, but like where you could get up close to it and then see like a clip inside each frame or something, because it's digital. And so you could remix basically what people have bought, and like buying stills from old reels. Or you mentioned like comics, but like what if not comics, but like newspaper comic strips that you could have the strip as a collectible.
Like Garfield
Dill, like all of those. That's interesting too. So I don't know. I just think that we're seeing the tip of the iceberg, and I think you're leading with some things that make sense as far as like this digital statues, and now we're getting into closer and closer to digital toys, and then we're also seeing comic books. But I think that like there's other medias out there that are already collectible in some senses that we're now starting to get. Like stamps, I think, are super undervalued and underappreciated. I think because of their low value of like real life to buy them and for a couple of cents, and it takes a while to mature. But I think that we're starting to see that Veve is kind of this thing that puts collectability and maturity on crack, where things mature in value like super, super fast. And so I don't know, it's going to be exciting to see what's there. And I think that a lot of people are being blinded from the when MTL, when MCP, when, and then seeing the red, that they're missing what's right before them. Like a lot of people used to tell me, like, I wish I could get such and such at retail. Well, guess what? A lot of the stuff that you can get right now from like this current season is retail. And we saw similar with season 2, where there was some stuff that just didn't mature very fast, and people kind of like meh. And now the season 1 is kind of like Grail City. Season 2 is now being looked at, and season 3 is going to be like, it's not going to be, I don't know. People just, I think sometimes it's that perspective, and being able to shift your perspective, you can pick up on things.
Agree. It'll happen. You mentioned before arcades, and I think Marvel vs. Capcom for me was one of the fun arcade games. You had like Metal Slug, you had like Cruis'n Exotica. But what Sody Pop here is saying that they'll have a long-awaited Tekken versus Vivi versus Street Fighter type of thing, as if Vivi might have their own thing. But you did mention before that there'll be accessories versus land. Now, for me, I think they're kind of two sides of the same coin. Land, in my opinion, will build a lot of personal wealth because you can get something that, again, super speculation here, that let's say if they have Nintendo, if they have Legend of Zelda and they have Zelda's Castle or Mario, Princess Peach's Castle, then there's a good bet that nerds like me will want to buy land next to their castles, not including like Disney, not including like anything that we already have. But then there's accessories, which will burn a lot of OMI because it's going to be high mint stuff. What do you think will be better for people with short term versus long term accessories versus land? Go.
Yeah, great question. I think that the answer is going to be both. I think that technically you could see them as one and the same, not one to one, but I think that land in and of itself will be like a base foundational thing where everyone can like upgrade their showrooms or their houses or however they end up doing it, to where you can have more space. You can actually set up like a digital storefront, if you will, to either show off your collectibles, or I think what's more likely to happen is you're going to start to see the accessories front or new versions of collectibles be like board games. So you might have like 25,000 copies of Checkers, which sounds lame. Like, Checkers, who cares about Checkers? But if you have only one of the 25 or 10 of the 25, that's where you can start to rent these games out, and people can have these digital game nights. And so poker, Monopoly, if we get some kind of like Hasbro type dealio, like these are the games that they could start releasing games that are one of however many, but that's all that will ever be. Of this version, or they can do remixes of like it's the holiday version of Monopoly or whatever. So there'll be subsets and stuff. But I think that will make land better because it's more things that you can do to socialize and experience and share our joy of collecting, share of like the communities that we've met. Like, I would love to hang out with you in the Viviverse like once a night, and we could have a couple friends get in and play games and hang out and chat and do all these other things. Like that's what I think this is meant to be. Like, if you think about where David started, and again, Speculation City, he still owns the same business, but what is it? It's a storefront, but I believe there's a gaming wing in the back where you can do tabletop gaming, arcade gaming, all these other things. Like, there are similar shops around town. Being able to take that and digitize that and make it more accessible to more people. So, because some people might say like, "Oh, I don't want to go there. That's for nerds." But like, if I can just pick up my phone or jump in a headset or a laptop and on the web platform, and I can hang out with my friends and do whatever and be and look like or be whoever I want to be. That's where the magic. Oh, we're showing shirts. Nice shirt. I got this.
Anyway, oh, you got a broken crayon.
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah. So, but anyway, like I think that's going to be great. And then on the accessory sides, I think people thought I was joking about indoor house plants. Like, if you want to change up your style in your showroom like you would your house, just buy the new bundle pack of whatever, and all that burns all the OMI. They can do a discount for OMI purchases, so then that entices more. Like, so that's why I'm buying OMI. But then so now you've got plants everywhere, or now you've got this new like for Chinese New Year, they're doing a tiger version of X, Y, and Z. You can have that, and you can start to collect and piece together like your style, or you can have these like bundles that all go together and have a theme or whatever. The flip side, I think people aren't paying attention to also, is doing IP driven accessories, like the Thanos gauntlet, and then having like some kind of display pedestal that is a non-IP thing. Grab the Thanos gauntlet, put it on a pedestal in your showroom, and it's like slowly rotating. Whatever you put on the pedestal slowly rotates. So you could put a more Mermicorno on there, or you could put like whatever, like the DeLorean, and make the DeLorean like hover in place and rotate. Or if we go to more car driven things with like these car IPs that we've been getting,
that's
where you can buy accessories to actually build a car garage and have them on these like 5-car rotating turntables that you can scale up, drop your cars onto, and now display 5 cars at once in your showroom. And it's more of a showpiece now. Like, that's where I think this all goes. And so you're going to have the blend of non-IP things that have either no cap or high cap or only available for it's unlimited mint up until this date, all of these things that make them interesting. But then the flip side would be that you also have licensed accessories, like the bat signal from fucking Batman, to where you can turn it on and it shows off in the sky outside of your showroom or whatever. Like, that's what's coming probably.
So I wasn't even so my accessories that I thought VV exclusive things was going to be it was going to be something similar to like, oh, hey, get this Veve toilet paper so you can like TP your friend's house, which I think they still should do.
Maybe, yeah, that'd be cool.
That'd be great. But what you're saying is like, oh, let's say they make 30,000 Infinity Gauntlets or whatever, and then you have like you said, even if they only have 30,000 gauntlet tables to put it on, there's going to be a couple people that can get a few, but eventually some people will buy that and they'll burn it so that the value goes up. And if you want an Infinity Gauntlet to rotate like the lenticular cards do, you need that table, you need that thing.
Well, I think there's going to be like furniture type. So this would be like almost like a column that has a small beam of light or something. Like, and they could be stylized different ways. Have that be almost infinite mint or mint through like the season or whatever. And then next season there's a variant of it. So if you want 4 of those things, you have to buy 4 during the time that it's there, and then one
for each season.
Or whatever. Like maybe you want to display like a DeLorean on one, a Myrmicorno, and then like a Thanos gauntlet or whatever. You can put any of your accessories or collectibles on the thing, and it just makes it levitate and rotate or whatever in a beam of light. So it's like a cool display stand, if you will. So I think those will be types of accessories. And so that you'll have basically accessories that make use with other collectibles and accessories. But then the Infinity Gauntlet, maybe it's a blind box, and so it's meant unlimited, but there's only a certain drop percentage, and so you want like the Tony Stark one, and then you want the Thanos one, or you want the Thanos one that's like busted or whatever.
And Veve would get the fees, like all of the fees for each time that sells from person to person. Oh, that's brilliant. In whale games, or even like not even whale game, dolphin games, whatever, when you have extinction level events, like when there's OMI to NFT, I forget who I told, I think it was like me home or whoever, that I will probably have to step away for a little bit because I have an addictive personality. If we were to have this at 11 a.m., I would have been drinking at 10 a.m., like right before we got started. I do have an addictive personality. I would most likely spend a good deal of my OMI on NFTs, whether it's buying alligator Lokis or Myrmicornos, or I don't even like Star Trek that much. I'm a Star Wars fan. I would buy a bunch of the Star Trek stuff just to burn it so that Star Trek people couldn't get it. Like maybe I'm showing a little bit too much my darker side here.
This is why you don't pick leaders, because you went Hitler and now you're destroying Star Trek. No, I'm just kidding. Someone's going to clip that and then just do like a remix. Somehow we'll be doing like the auto tune.
I can never run for office.
Hitler, destroy Star Trek. It's going to be the best remix.
Yeah. So they'll raise the floor prices, or they'll make that extinct. What are your thoughts on that? Will some whales have too much power? And how do you combat that? And how should people feel?
Yeah, I think that it's the interesting thing, again, interesting things have lots and lots of layers. And so the OUP lets new folks buy it. And so, yeah, that could be a thing that's ran by whales. But the flip side is, if you've been in Veve for a while, you've been earning points in the Master Collector program. And so you can wager those points. And I think that people need to understand that. I'm going to probably age myself out on some things, but like back in the day, carousels, and I don't even know if this happened while I was alive, but I've been told about this from like a Ray Bradbury book. But anyway, you used to be able to reach out on the carousel and grab a ring. And if you could grab a ring, then you got a free ride. And so you want to, with these wager things, there's going to be some people that say, oh, I've cracked the code and this is my strategy. If you invest this much percentage of your points, and no, the secret is you want to reach your little claw from your Master Collector or your OUP to the very bottom. You want to just barely just grab it and game it that way. Like, unless you've got points to spend or whatever, you want to just slide right into the bottom part of the bottom percentage to then keep more points and more OMI for yourself, if that's the layer that you're playing at. The flip side is whales are gonna be like, fuck it, I'm gonna just drop a bunch of OMI because it's blind. From what I believe, it's blind, so you can't see. You can see how many people are in, but you can't see what they've wagered, if you will, or raffled, or whatever they're doing. So you want to try and grab just the very bottom. And so I do think that with that, or that strategy, you might lose more often than you win, but you're maximizing your points by just barely grabbing the last little bottom percentage. And so I think that's the best way to play it if you don't have tons of points or whatever. But I think that in the Master Collector program almost balances the OUP side. The OUP side lets somebody that's new to the game buy their way in. MCP is less so able to be gamed because it's based on time and getting those points daily and growing your collection. And so I think the strategy really comes where you can play both lanes But if OUP is really, really heavy from whales, the other side is the collectors. And so I think that that's one way. And the other thing is just the community is going to continue to, at least me, I'm going to continue if I find something that I think is working. Eventually, I'm going to just toss it out for everybody to use. And then that may help level the game out, because I think that it's not exciting if there's not layers to it where the game constantly changes. If you think that you can just show up, buy the thing, and it'll be worth $1 gajillion, like, it's going to change. And I think that's also why people are saying are seeing like these red dots and looking to these like pillars that we've just described in a very, very young game as like the subject matter experts. And again, I'm not bashing anybody, but if you're the comic person, and then somebody else, like, you need to realize that like just because something's very, very popular in the physical and laughed at in the physical doesn't mean that you and I can't say, you know what's cool? Pimp Hulk is cool. And then we now have 200,000 people go after the Pimp Hulk, which there's only like, I think it's one of the 10,000 ones or whatever. Yeah. They're gone. And guess what now is more expensive than the physical? It's the Veve one. Like the tides will turn, because up until now it's been a very, very limited, shallow pool with comics. It's not something that everyone buys. The flip side with Veve is that everyone can be a collector with the app in their pocket. And so the tides can turn very, very quickly. And so I don't think the game is set, and I think it's going to continue to change. And so, yeah, we'll see what happens.
That's a good point. So in the future, as OMI gets you, is there another project that you're just like, hey, some of the ideas that were maybe too, that you didn't think you could pull off because you didn't have a good project under you, that you can do now because, you know, you have Feesh under your belt, or an idea that you're like, this is too crazy for my first project? Do you think that you'd be able to do that now in the future as OMI moons, as you get a lot more money? Or do you think that why not just do it with Feesh? Like, what does the future hold?
Yeah. So the Feesh, I did put like a cap on it in some degree. So like it is a 12 months guaranteed worth of content. And then when we sell out, and again, it's completely word of mouth. And so I have to continue. I'm not going out and buying advertisement. I'm not hyping it to the moon, because it's not that type of project. I'm doing it different. Its DNA. It is completely different than anything that I've ever seen done within the NFT space. And so because of that, when we sell out, it'll be from word of mouth. That will extend it for a second year worth of content. But after that, that is the end of the promised committed thing. Now, I've already did the first roadmap that wasn't supposed to happen, things that weren't supposed to happen until I sold out like 75%. I've already done them. And so it's like, you know what? I just did them because they were the right thing to do, because it's more value. And guess what? I'm making a fucking game. I never told you that I was going to ever make a game. I'm just doing it. And I've got a couple other of those like F you, I'm just doing it ideas that I'm just going to continue to, if it makes sense, but I don't want to overpromise and hype somebody into it, because that's just not this project. But yeah, I've got a ton of ideas. Yeah, so at the end of the second year, basically I will open it up to the community to where they'll have an ecosystem that they can continue to create things for Feesh, or other artists can do their own deployments and create for the Feesh. So this becomes like, it's a living thing that now it's your turn kind of thing. So after that, I've got ideas, but like I'm very big on writing down like 10 years from now, what am I? I am this, I am that. And I write down 10 things that I'll be in 10 years from now. I was lucky enough to, when I started doing that, I crossed off 5 in the first year. And now I've had to now, like, when you've done things that you're supposed to do 10 years ago and you did them in basically 1 year, what's next? And so, yeah, I don't know specifically what will be, but one of the things that I've written down, or 2 of them, one is I want to change the world for a living, as ridiculous as that sounds, but like, so that'll be once Feesh is done, or while I'm doing Feesh also, that'll be something I'll be sinking my teeth into. And the other thing is I want to commit a certain amount of like funds and resources. So not just monetary, but like helping teach somebody, or unlocking them, or connecting my network with theirs, to empower them and make an investment in others, so that they can then start doing that for others as well. So that's something in that arena is probably what's next. But were you asking like specifically what are the projects I'm interested in other than Feesh's, or just in general with me?
I mean, in general, but also you mentioned before, you know, I assume that was your Veve secret plan, you know, doing the selling stuff for OMI and then selling it back for gems, and that. Did you have a secret plan for Feesh?
maybe.
Okay.
There's one thing that I let slip on my Feesh court a while ago, but I deleted it. But I am doing it, like, my whole thing is to give more value. So I don't want to say it, but I will say it if you really want me to. All right, fine, fuck it, I'll say it. And so I took in the beginning, when I sold the first 1,000 Feesh, I took those funds and I also put them into OMI. So when OMI 3x's from that price, I will sell that, and then I will take the 1/3 of it, repay every single person that spent Ethereum on the first 1,000 Feesh, repay their money. And so they literally got everything in the project for free.
For free.
And then
So people are, your lore tab is calculating, all right, a few months ago, when the first 1,000 OMI was sold, when that 3x is from there, they'll give everyone their money back. You net the difference.
But it's just the first 1,000. There's tons more coming for everybody else too. But those first 1,000 completely, I didn't do any interviews really where I pumped Feeshes. It was literally the community, kind of people finding it, liking it, telling somebody else, and it doubles and doubles and doubles. So that's one thing that I'm hoping to. And again, OMI has to 3x for me to do that. So that's why I haven't talked about it, is because I try not to talk about things that I can't control directly. But that's one thing. That's a secret that's coming. And then, I'll be using that other, basically doubling the money that I got from Feeshes in other ways to try and get back to the community. Just for me, it's not about money. It's about giving like a memory or giving an experience and I've tried to floor it as low as I possibly can for the buy-in, so that they'll definitely get that value, but I'm trying to make them feel 10x the value. So it's not like a hype it to the moon and then the people that were in early sell on the other people. Like it's just not that. It's an experience, if anything. So that's why I would never pressure anybody in. If you want to get in, but don't give up your food or rent money to get into this, because I'm promising zero gains. Now on the secondary, people aren't like, there are some people that have sold airdrops that they got for free by having Feesh and made their money back, but that is the situation. Not,
I think the floor price for Feesh is like 3x of the initial minting, I believe.
That's cool. Right. I don't know. I don't think I've sold a single Feesh secondary. What I'm talking about is the accessories. So the accessories that
maybe that's it.
The airdrops. Yeah, the airdrops for that is pretty. They do their, because the earlier you're in, the more rare the airdrops are that you can get, and so people that jump in want those airdrops and stuff like that. So
you mentioned
someone did sell a fish. Wow. Okay. Yeah.
Somebody mentioned in the comments before that the floor was like 3 times of the mint, or like 3 times what it cost them to mint.
Got it. Yeah. You could just mint them. Like there's still some available, so you don't have to go on OpenSea. But yeah, for the longest time, up till 1,000, we had not sold any, which to me, I took it as people genuinely like their Feesh, that they're enjoying the experience. And like, why would you sell it if you're going to get 10 more months or so of airdrops that you can then either sell or enjoy and stuff like that. So I don't know. It's just, again, I'm trying to do it different. It's not for money for me.
Yeah, okay. So you mentioned before that you did want to change the world, which is I guess it depends on how you want to change the world. Like you can change the world by really just changing like your family or community, but obviously with more money that becomes easier. You can, like even like me, like I talk to some really smart people, and I happen to be good at like 1 or 2 things, but I have no like formal education. I'm like really not that smart. But I think, I'm same. And I think that a way that I could change the world is by being able to go and see where, let's say like Bill Gates gave all his like vaccines to people, where he like eradicated like certain diseases. I'm like, okay, these are the places that I'm going to focus on building wells with sanitation stations, and hopefully, again, Elon Musk will either build solar panels or will give free internet. That's one of the ways in which I could change like at least a certain part of the world. What are some ways? How do you plan to change it? Is it by coding? Is it by money issues? What's your blueprint?
Yeah, I think I'm more bullish on people. So I've had a bunch of different ideas. One was I wanted to create a library which sounds really, really crazy. But it wouldn't be like a normal library. It would be like literally like buy a big space in like downtown Detroit, and then have conference rooms, free internet, have like a cafeteria with chefs there, car mechanic place, and like have all these like skilled trades. And so there'd definitely be like computer arena and teach code there. In the car mechanic area, if someone's car had broken down, they can bring it in for like really, really reduced cost.
And you could teach them how to fix it as well.
Either teach them or have mechanics that are skilled with those jobs that maybe can't do as much all the time. Now passing on those trades and knowledge to those folks to then fix cars within the community, chefs teaching people how to cook. So it's basically like a place to level up. If you need a conference room, you can come and have that. If you need an office, you could work out of there temporarily within a certain amount of reasons. Having that all kind of like run off blockchain to where there's like a credit system that you can kind of like buy and trade, and by like helping up, you commit so much time to helping others, you now earn, and then you can spend that on this other thing. And like having this just environment to kind of like level up the community, and put resources where there are very little, is one idea that I had, but I don't know how practical that is for right now. And then other things would be, I've got this idea that I'm kicking around about decentralized identity. Like this is a bug that's in like my ear, that there's something there that's super, super valuable that's not been surfaced yet. So decentralized identity, where say you want to wear a mask, but I need I need to be able to produce that have a working relationship with somebody. Yeah. And then having these kind of mutual like things. And so instead of me giving up my actual identity of who I am in a decentralized world, I can actually give up pieces of myself, and you get kind of like a silhouette of a person. And so then you're more likely to take a risk because you can kind of see these pieces of them. And so then that can kind of tip into the serving the underbanked or unbanked, because they're able to kind of like level up through these different things. So I'm more on this is where I'm focusing like towards this arena, and then letting the problems kind of come at me and solving them just like I have with anything else, of like, I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to learn it. I'm going to do this. Yeah. And if I can't, I'll find like people that are smarter than me and work with them, and just really, again, aim my passion right at it. And I'm very, very good at breaking things down and remixing them into solutions. And I just plan to do that in a way that enables and empowers others to do that for themselves.
I definitely feel with the unbanked. That's why I invested in Square back in the day, because a lot of banks that really don't cater to poor people, you have to have a certain amount of money to get a bank account. But Square, they'll give you a bank account and a rounding number, like just like that, yep. Which I really love. And there's I forget who it is. There's this TikToker where she women-splains things to other women about men, because she's like dedicated, like she has like this really man of a husband. She's like, oh, I know why he does certain things.
Sink knife?
I forget what her name is, but she says that.
I think she explains like there's things like where like I will even put a knife on the sink, but do it in such a way that the blade doesn't touch anything.
Yes.
And I'll leave it. And my wife's like, what the fuck is going on? And I'm like, well, I didn't know if I was fully done with it. So I didn't want to dirty it, but I also wanted to put it somewhere where if it dripped, it would drip into this. Like, it was a genius. But I think I know the TikToker that you're speaking of, and she explains many, like, she calls them very, very weird terms like sink knife or floor pants or whatever, like where it's like your jeans that are almost dirty, but if you needed to put them back on, they're not totally dirty. Like, yeah. So, and I'm like, how did she get in my brain? But yeah, no.
Yeah, it's weird what she knows, that like she knows things that we know, but we don't know we know.
Correct.
And one of her TikToks is saying that like, if you text your man like to do something, and he says, "Yep, I'll take care of it. I got it. I'm doing it right now." Like, your man will not know at that time how to do it, but he'll figure out how to do it. Like we do have that one thing where come hell or high water, we'll be able to figure that out.
Yes.
So I thought that was really cool that you said that. If you didn't know how to do it, you'd hire help, or you'd have some people to bounce ideas off of.
I just think that, so when I was really young, there's this thing called Future Problem Solvers of America. Very, 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 very low bar of execution in the name, like doesn't set you up for tons of pressure or anything like that. But part of their thing was, before you could solve a problem, you had to think of 20 problems about the thing that you were trying to solve. And eventually you whittle that down to the underlying problem. And then you do the flip side of, you've come up with 20 solutions for the underlying problem until you find your one underlying solution. And it forces you to, like, when going to problem solve something, if you don't understand the problem, you'll never solve it in the right way. And so it forces you to look at it from a bunch of different perspectives. The flip side is it forces you to go, on a knee jerk. If I was like, this light bulb blew out, how can we fix it? You're going to come up with like 2 or 3 ways, knee jerk ways, right? But if you start to stretch and then stretch really, really far, some of these like really, really creative ones not only solve the issue, but solve 3 other issues. And so then you really get this, like, I call it inventing time travel, if you will, where you can, instead of saving, something takes 30 minutes out of your day every single day, if you can solve that or make it where it's half the time, you now invented time travel because you almost have 2 hours back in your week, right? Yeah. So the more that you can do that, the more that you can kind of like develop this extra time to solve more problems. And so like it's for me less of getting in my own way of saying, well, how am I going to do that? Or that's impossible, or you could never do that. It's the wrong way of thinking for at least me. And by like removing all of those nonsensical boundaries that we put on ourselves almost as a reflex, it allows me to just, I'm going to figure it out. And I'm going to just trade. So it's a weird thing that I do. But it's worked. So maybe it's not that weird.
That reminds me of the Reed Richards Future Foundation. If you ever read like Marvel comics or Fantastic Four comics, he says that he made a future foundation for kids, like specifically like high school age, maybe even younger, that because adults really aren't, as you get older, you lose some of your creative spark, and kids, they still have that. So they could figure out ways to solve issues that adults wouldn't think of.
Yeah, it's because we as adults already bring these assumptions of constraints, I think, by just living life of like, well, how are you going to get the money? Well, who the fuck cares how you get it? Like, just solve the thing and then work backwards is the answer. Versus, I can't. That will never work because like you're almost talking yourself out of whatever. If this is the absolute solution, then start there and work backwards until you've got the plan and the path to just execute. So. No. I get that it sounds like a pie in the sky. I think that if I'm being honest, my gut is to be more actively involved than just mail checks to people. But
this way you learn and grow as a person as well while doing that.
Yeah, but also
like can bring that to the next problem.
Yeah, I'm boots on the ground, and I think that there's people that there's a problem, and then the people that just shows up and like similar to the coconut thing earlier, like we'll just make an app. Well, they don't have phones, so now what? Right, like you can't just. Sometimes you have to come get into the roots of things and be able to empathize with and understand the pain points. Otherwise, you're solving the wrong problems.
Yeah, no, agreed. I mean, I guess even if you just put money at it and gave them phones, well, how many of them know how to use it, and how do you know that they'll be using it properly? And how many of them that you think that maybe they have a good business, but also are addicted to things, and they could fence that phone for something, to satisfy one of their vices.
Or if there's no phones, then are there cell phone towers?
Also true.
Right. So like you have to start to like we have all these assumptions. Yeah. So like sometimes it's not. It's just like so funny story. I was working for this company, and they were asked by like Chase Bank Chase is like, we want to put money into the community, and they're like, cool. And they're like, where should we put it? And they're like, well, here, and here. And so they're like, great. And they put it in and nothing happens. And why? Because where they had funded and put the resources, there was no public transportation to get there. And so you were literally saying like free food for anybody that wants it. And everyone's over here starving to death, but they can't get there physically. And so you're not solving so sometimes it takes, again, perspective or taking the data and overlaying it on top. So, it's even though this seems like the knee-jerk answer, over here is actually where it should go because public transport runs there. So that way the people that actually need the help can get to it. And then we can actually see momentum. And now that they're fed, now we can find out what the next problem is and actually make things instead of just going, here's a thing. Sometimes again, you have to, it's about getting to the place where you can empathize and see the perspective and not just rush in with the solution of, we're just going to build an app for everything. Like sometimes that just doesn't work. And it falls a little flat when people are in pain and suffering.
That gives me an idea of taking people from Bermuda and putting them in New York City, because have you ever been to Bermuda?
No, but I've heard a song that mentions Bermuda, Bahama, and then someone's attractive mother.
Yeah. So in Bermuda, there's beautiful cruise lines that go there. If you ever want to go, I definitely recommend it. But also be wary of drunk people at Senor Frogs. There was a thing that happened. We were all doing shots, and it was like flaming shots. And this person like dropped the flaming shot, and of course there was alcohol all where we were standing, so the whole place went open. Is ridiculous. But there is a series of bus drivers down there that are so good, because the lanes are like in which you drive, they're like just big enough for buses to fit in, and the buses that are on the inside have to drive really close to this mountain, and buses on the outside have to not fall off, and the buses are coming within inches of each other. And I'm like, as a New Yorker, I'm down there and I'm pretty tipsy. I'm thinking like, New York City bus drivers would not stand a chance here. So that'd be a good way to outsource money. Send those bus drivers that are really good, send them to New York City, where New York City buses take up like 3 lanes at a time, and they'd make them much more efficient, make the traffic, and they could send money back down there, and they just have this constant flow of bus drivers. It might be stupid, but I feel like it might work on some level. You were talking about changing the world before, and it's easier to do in people like you're in my position, where we are a little privileged, we have a little bit of money, especially like you, and you're crazy smart. But if young people, let's say like college age or below, they wanted to do something big, or they wanted to change the world, what advice would you give them on how to do it?
Start, and then when you fail, know that failure doesn't mean that you are a failure, but that what you tried is a failure. Learn from it and go again. I think that like it's easy to say like, oh my gosh, Brock is super successful. Like I got lucky and got to pull the cord early, right? Like I'm 37, I can technically retire, but like that doesn't mean for me. Like I'm just wired differently, and so like I want to unlock, what I was able to unlock through just trying and trying and trying and trying and trying. And make it easier for the next person. I mean, it's funny that like my daughter is literally coming up with like her own NFT project that like just from hearing me, but like her knee jerk wasn't, and then we can make a lot of money. It was, and then I can take that money and donate like art supplies to kids, and maybe I'll take like 100 Roblox.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, okay, cool. But like I think that like I am people give like the current generation like a lot of shit. Of like, oh, millennials and like all this generalization stuff is like silly, I think, to me. But like they have pissed off the wrong group of scrappy kids that are coming up now that like just don't give a fuck. And so I don't think it's a matter of me needing to tell them how to do anything. I think they're already going to start changing and shaping the world. But if they're looking into getting like problem solving, I do think that I don't want to say learn to code, because I don't think that that's the answer for anything, but I do think find tools that you're passionate about and then go towards those, because I don't think code is going to be the fix for everything. I don't think that. I do know that like technology is evolving and stuff, and it's going to be a great tool. But what's more important, even when I'm teaching code, it's less about the ability to code and more about breaking things down into processes and steps and logic. And so like trying to learn to code and grasping the concepts, you can take those same concepts and apply them to tons of different things in the business world, in the grassroots, kind of like whatever, or even in community building, and make them work. So I think but the biggest thing is just don't wait for someone to tell you that it's okay. Don't wait for a permission slip. Just do it. Just fucking go. And if anyone goes, oh, you're doing your NFT project wrong, not that everyone's gonna do it, but like, and just say, fuck you, I'm gonna do what I want. At the end of the day, like you're
Beastie Boys.
You're
do what you tell me.
Well, but like there were tons of people that had told me like, you're doing this wrong, you're not marketing it, it's not going to sell out. It's like, well, if I sell 1,000 fish, like that's insane. Like that's the bonus round for me, and we're going on 2,000. So like, I'm just building something that has innate value, because I'm just putting like when I'm not working, like, and working, family time, sleep a little bit, the rest is Feesh, because I just want to give people something that is memorable, and to keep them guessing and keep the surprise. I get to literally be like Santa Claus every single day, because every day they could get something new. Their fish will just start swimming in a different way, new airdrop, surprise airdrop, contest, like you name it. Like I'm just able to do all of these things. And if I was, I guess people coming in and telling me I'm doing it wrong when I'm doing something that I've not seen ever done this way before, they're assuming that I want to sell out immediately, or that that I'm doing it for money. I could monetize the shit out of it and nickel and dime people, but instead, one of my rules is you pay once for a Feesh, the rest is free. Like even the people that have Feesh now, they're getting the game side of it for free. And people that don't have Feesh then will pay or whatever. And that'll just go towards making things even better. But I'm doing it different. So for someone to try and stop you when you say, hey, I have this idea, or I feel really passionate about XYZ, like they're coming in and showing up like they know, when you're probably doing something that's never been done before.
So obviously it's people's wants and needs. Like if you're the coder, if you're the one that's building it, obviously do what you want. But to push back a little bit, and not that coding would solve everything, but there are major, I think that the way in which our generation kind of grew up with the internet, we all know how to turn on a computer, we know how to email, we all know how to do at least basic things that, people that 50 and older might have had to learn, like maybe from their kids. Don't you think that coding at some point will be like AOL and AIM was in like 1999 or 2001? Do you think that will just be like the standard, that instead of like a keyboarding class, you'll have a coding class, and everyone will have to go through that?
Yeah, when I was younger, my school in Florida was pushing really, really hard on learning a foreign language. And I think it's super fucking important. I think it's downplayed how important it is, because we people in America start with this assumption that everyone speaks English, and I think that's silly. Secondly,
although most people do,
I think if you look it up, I think it's still only like 15-20% of the world. But
anyway, really, that's it?
I believe so, as like their primary language.
Yeah, I mean, at least that's spoken, because I know, like, even in Europe, if you're in like Austria, and German and French, you're still going to know English. Like, English is mostly, at least nowadays, I don't want to say the standard, but I mean, if you want to be in the competitive in the world, it's like Mandarin.
According to Google, according to the CIA, Spanish is spoken in 4.85% of the world's population, and its use is even more widespread than English, which is spoken by only 4.83% of the world.
Oh, wow.
According to Google, I don't know.
It seems like so little, though.
But it's our perspective, right? Like we're in a pond of people that mostly do speak.
Yeah, I mean, I guess when you have 2 billion people in China and India, or 2.5 billion people, whatever, and maybe not a lot of them speak English. Yeah, okay, that's fair point.
My flip side, though, is that I still think that coding it should be almost counted as learning a programming language, should be almost counted as a foreign language credit. When I teach elementary school kids how to code, which sounds insane, when I show up, I don't teach it with code. I teach it with a package of bread, a jar of peanut butter, a jar of jelly, a plate, and a lot of fucking napkins, and then I think a knife. And so I show up and I'm like, hi, I talk to computers for a living, and I would like to teach you how to talk to computers too. Is that cool? Yeah. And then I say, before we begin, I'm a little hungry. Can you guys teach me to make a peanut butter and jelly? I want to see how you guys make it. And they're like, yeah, and sure. I'm like, okay, so what do I do first? And then some know-it-all in the back will be like, take a piece of bread. And I'm like, perfect. I will hold the bread in one hand, punch a hole through the bag, rip out a piece of bread, and everyone loses their minds. And they're like, no, not like that. You got to open the bag first. It's like, oh, open the bag. And then I'll rip the bag open in half the rest of the way and dump all the bread out. And they're like, what? Why are you doing this to us, sir? We're scared. And then it continues to where they start to figure out that learning to code is like talking to an idiot. A computer is a complete idiot, and it makes zero assumptions, and unless you are very, very like specific and what you want it to do, it's going to go wrong. And so by the end of it, they start to put that together very quickly, and then they start changing the way that they talk. They start to say, take the knife in your dominant hand, hold the knife so it is perpendicular to the ground. They might not say perpendicular because they're kindergarten, but hold it so it's up and down to the ground. Stick it in, and then spread it across 3 times without going past the crust. Like these, they're kindergartners, but like it's that shift in mindset. And when you start to break it down like that, now code becomes easy, because it's like, oh, I want it to draw a picture of a circle or whatever. I need it to start at a certain point, and so it's taking a problem or a specific task, breaking it down into steps, and then doing the logic to make it do it, and then putting parameters around it so it doesn't screw up, because it doesn't assume that there's an edge to a paper like you would as a human. So those things kind of happen. So yeah,
that's so beautiful. That's so like it's like a Reddit explain like I'm 5, or like explain like I'm Homer Simpson.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost like that meme language, like directions not clear, got genitals caught in ceiling fan, like so what do you think of apps like Grasshopper that teach? Is that an efficient way of trying to learn how to code?
Yeah, I mean, so I grew. You have to understand, like when I started coding, I had to beg my parents to drive me to a bookstore, to where again I had no money, so I would sit down and they would go fuck off and do whatever parents do in a bookstore. I would be sitting there learning code as fast as I rapidly could, because I knew I was on a timetable. I was like, oh, that's how it works. Oh, this is how this is. This is this. There was no Google. There was no search. I had to go and do that. And like, there was one person that I met in my career that was way more hardcore than me. He grew up in Africa, and he had to walk to like the city town, and he was coding on paper. And so he would write down on paper, find a bug in the way that it was working, just because like, wait, that doesn't work. Walk, learn, walk back, try, fuck, that doesn't work, walk, and do it. But like that is how I had to learn to code. Like, not the walking part, but like I only got like an official resource or guide, very, very, so it was break it, it worked. Woohoo! Break it, it worked. And that's how it worked. But going then into a programming class in high school, it was a new class that had never been offered before, and the teacher was like, if you can make a blackjack game, I'll give you an A+. And I was like, what language do we have to make it in? He's like, whatever you want, I don't care. And so the next weekend, I was like, here's a floppy disk with the game on it, and he ran it, and he's like, you have an A. I was like, thanks, but I'm gonna do more stuff. But like, I'm just saying, like, thank you for the fun challenge. I'm gonna keep going. So and again, I'm not trying to like stroke my ego, like, this is how smart I am. It's just, I think that like, if you are determined and follow your passions, you're gonna figure it out. And I think coding can help you open a lot of doors. But I don't think that if you try coding, you understand the concepts, but you still fucking hate it, that you should go and be a coder. Like, don't do that. Instead, take the logical part, go find your passions, and then chase that. Because I think that's just where it is. And there's some folks though that like, they want to be an artist, but there's no money there. And so your challenge then is, how do I either weaponize my art to do something that can make income, or I have to go and do this hustle to like make income to then do the art. Like, unfortunately, that's the constraints that we've got now. As NFTs and other things, again, art becoming now more accessible, because I've got artist friends that are fucking brilliant, but I didn't know about them a year ago, because I just, our paths had never crossed. And so they're hustling their ass off, and just like what I said, like, the resources are over here, the people are over here. If there's no intersection point, then it just doesn't happen. And so NFTs are making them accessible, making it more like, where I can buy your art. I don't have to go to your studio. I don't have to go here. I can just go on OpenSea, or I can just go on another marketplace, or I can just go to you directly and buy it and get it. So it's accessible, but then also the royalties. Whereas an artist sells a painting for $500, they get $500 once. Now I go and flip it because they've won some big award for $100,000. How much does the artist get? Fuck all. But if it's an NFT, they're able to get a slice in perpetuity, and it's almost like having where they can continue and to have like reoccurring monthly income as people are enjoying their art and it's changing hands and all these other things. So like, that is now becoming more and more of a possible career choice without all the bullshit.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yep.
Like, people would ask me like, what would I charge if I had an NFT on Veve? I was like, listen, I would just want it for free, just so that people would buy it. Be like, oh, who is this real Randy Chavez? And then just Google me or YouTube me, and whatever, and then maybe just collect the fees. But that's what I love about blockchain too. It's so fast. It's so quick. Like, if you want to, confirm a certain like credential or whatever, and it takes like hours, or if you have to deal with like a college, it could take like days or weeks if they're really slow. The blockchain takes seconds or minutes. So I think that's a really big way of.
And then beyond that, you can trustlessly automate stuff. So you're no longer waiting for, it's a holiday, so nobody could stamp your check and scan it in. Nope, it's all digital, right? Like, so it happens,
so
and
slow.
it doesn't need people. It does, and it removes human error. And again, I don't think that blockchain solves all the things, but I think it is a new platform for which we can build better services and ecosystems on top of.
Yeah, no, agreed. You were talking before. Also, before I go on, I have like 4 or 5 questions like in my head, not including the comments I haven't gotten to. How much more time do we? All right, let's get this bread. Look at that bread.
If I could, I probably have a hard stop in about like just under an hour. It's like 4:30 Eastern time.
Well, it's 3:43 right now. So you said in under an hour, like
45-ish minutes.
Yeah. Okay, no, that's fine. Okay, so put 4:30 stop time. That's what ST will mean. Okay. We're talking before about how hard it was to do things, and I that's learning how to code, and someone that was from like I think South Africa that had to walk like that old person. I had to walk uphill 2 miles both ways. The idea that I had to do that with piano. Like I couldn't afford piano lessons, and because I couldn't afford piano lessons, I couldn't afford like even if I could afford the sheet music, I wouldn't have I didn't know I could read music on violin that I learned in high school. But for piano lessons, I had to like draw out. I had to go on YouTube, look up someone playing a certain song, hope that they had put the camera where I could see their fingers, and be like, okay, so there's 1. That's where I put my finger the first time, and then 2, and then 3, and I still can't read music, but I know how to play a lot of things on piano because of that. So I feel you on that.
But the flip side though is now someone can go and buy a course for $10 on Udemy and get the knowledge. The problem now is though, because it is so readily available and easy, it's always a tomorrow thing, unless you're following your passions. It's always well, I own it. I can always do it tomorrow. I can always do it tomorrow. I can always do it tomorrow. And so for me, I was driven by wanting to solve it, that I went through to extreme lengths to learn it. And so I think that's what made me a better coder than some of the others. And again, I'm not saying I'm the best or anything like that, but like that drove me to push on my career to keep going, because I had grinded my way up to that point. Now there's and it is a huge benefit, because someone that has grinded through life up to a certain point can now go and get the information, and they've got that hustle and that drive built into them because they've had to be better. They've had to be to persevere. They can go and get that information more easily and then use it. The ones that are less driven by the struggle, if you will, usually are the ones that I find that like, I say this when I interview folks, is like, I'm looking more for like raw passion or like determination more so than skill. I can teach you to code. I can't teach you to give a shit. I can't.
That's a good point.
And so that's, I think, what separates the ones that will succeed are the ones that are just like, I'm doing this because I can't. There is no other way for me, kind of thing. Like this is a step to where I'm going to go. So anyway, sorry, not to sidetrack from the questions that you had, but just it is a different time now, and now more than ever, information is freely available or very cheaply available, and so you really can dive. Like people ask me now all the time, like, how do you do Feeshes? Like, how did you make it? What are the languages you need to like? It is someone on Twitter just asked me this before the meeting or this call. And the information's out there. And a lot of it is you're a web developer that can now parlay your skills into this Web3 mindset. It's not a new technology. For most of it, it's the same technology. It's just applied in a different way.
Yeah. So. No, agreed. And I think that there is something to be said about how, and you might push back on this, that I think that in order to be successful, like really successful, like to facilitate and to try to nurture that drive, is it has to be hard. Like you said before, like there were times where you like had no room, no bed, and you just had to sleep on the floor. I think there's something to be said about how if it's really hard to attain and you go through that pain, that you're able to foster that long-term drive. Whereas if you just give somebody like all the things, they're like, okay, well, I don't need to struggle and I don't need to do this. Do you think that's correct, or do you think that no, if some people did have help, then they could do it easier? And which thought do you subscribe to?
Getting into a little bit of a blend of both. I think that everyone here has like their own like purpose and journey that they'll go on, and so there might be someone that is born into extreme wealth and privilege, but like what the trajectory that goes to is not very fruitful for them, and that it's actually kind of like dabbling off to the other side. Not saying like I've got everything, I just really am passionate about struggling and like almost dying and not having food, and like not saying that, but just like sometimes it's just they'll go that path and they'll be fine. Other times they'll go that path and realize that another path is for them. And the flip side is like some people might be born in extreme like just scarcity and have to grind their way up and do these like 1-inch punches, and just you get very, very disciplined in doing this like 1-inch punch that eventually you break through the wall and by yourself. It's similar to like that time travel thing. I was like, solve for saving yourself an hour a week, and eventually you've now can weaponize that extra time to then save 2 hours, and then eventually you can take that day and have a day off, or you can take that day and really get into something that you're passionate about, or that alleviates a week's worth of pain. Like that's where it is. So it just depends, I think, what you're made of and what your goals are. But I will say that I think that the ones that at least can put themselves in somebody else's shoes and see empathy from a different style, I think are the ones that will really make it. The ones that struggle to empathize with anything or see somebody else's perspective, and it is tough now because we've been conditioned, and this is something funny enough. I think that a lot of people in the Veve sphere have been conditioned for certain things, but being conditioned that just that sorry, I forget where I'm going. With Veve, I think we're being conditioned that comics will be cheap, or we're being conditioned that things will go to retail, and then surprise when it doesn't. Like you're being conditioned to make this feel like normal. The flip side, though, I think what I was trying to say is that being conditioned that I don't have to work for anything, or I don't have to do this, or I don't do that. Like that is then all you become, is this thing that coasts. And the flip side of when you've been conditioned to like, I can either accept this as my reality and this is all that will be, or I can do something and I'm going to be conditioned to grind and to do it. It's just, you see different results. And I think it's just up to the person and what they're willing to accept. Some people just, I want to be comfortable being uncomfortable by pushing forever to see how far I can go, to then prove to somebody that is starting out, wow, that is possible. Like I could do that if I wanted to. And hopefully I make it easier for someone behind me to then save enough energy to go even further.
Yeah, no, I think that is a good point, where some people that like where you were saying, like we're getting used to comics being cheap. There are some people that be in for a rude awakening, because there's some people that'll have that will be on that opposite side of the fence. Say like, I'm not going to pay, like $10-$20 for one comic, where I could pay $10 a month to Marvel in order to go and get every comic, imaginable. But I think at some point they'll realize that, oh, hey, some of these comics that I'm reading are really freaking good, and I could own these digitally, like impermeably and forever. And they could go, and it's not going to take too many of those people to say like, hey, some of these comics that I really like, and it could be comics that have real physical value, like Fantastic Four #1 or Marvel Comics #1, or it could be something that is so obscene and absurd, like Hitmonkey or whatever, and they'll be like, I just want this because it's a monkey like shooting people and it's amazing.
Yep.
And eventually those comics go from $5-$10 for the common to $50 for the common, because some people just want to own those digitally, and it's for comics that can be nothing.
There's tons of catalysts, but all it could take is Veve to drop like actual crate accessories that then you can put your comics inside of. And then you show up at someone's house and like, oh, your crate's not full. What's wrong with you? Like now suddenly there's a run, like everyone has to have a full crate. Like these small little things can have huge rippling effects, right? So another thing that I think is like getting those exclusive Veve covers, I think is really, really unique. Another thing I think is everyone wants comics in their showroom, like so you can read them in a showroom, but like what if we were able to, and maybe this isn't the first at bat, but you could expand it towards like, I really, really like this panel of a comic, and so I want that on my wall. And so I want to take the comic and stretch it out to where just that panel is on my wall or whatever. Or I could get a 2D almost poster size cover of the comic and put that to where every comic is technically also a 2D form. Like all these things can happen, and comics can totally flip. This morning I realized, because I've been trying to get 10 of every common comic. They're like, there's 2 that are stupid expensive because like that one that just dropped from like the Comic-Con thing or whatever. I'm just like,
Yeah,
okay, I'm not touching that
insane.
one. And the other Spider-Man one
And
that's like the floor
Spider-Man
is like
252.
$3,000 or whatever.
Yeah.
So oops, I lost on those. But the Thor one that's like really rare.
Yeah.
I just circled back because they were like 400 a piece, I think, or at least 380 or something like that.
Yeah.
They're not $80. I grabbed two for like $78 this morning, and so I'm backfilling my comics while everyone else is like throwing away comics, because I just think that like these are the Todds of comics. It's the first season of comics, so like
especially with something like Thor, where you said that was it's super low. Like that's Beta Ray Bill, which again, who hasn't really been properly introduced to the MCU.
Yep.
And I know the couple of really like old school comic heads will be like, well, they don't exactly follow comics to the T. Of course they don't. They have to make it for Hollywood. But again, like how many people knew about like Black Panther and Thanos before the MCU? Probably not too many.
As many as now, right? And even Deadpool, I think, if you're a comic head, that's always been a thing. But like until he hit the mainstream, it wasn't when the X-Men did like the first take at Ryan Reynolds being him that popped. It was when Marvel did it, right?
So like so salty about that.
Yeah, and so it'll be interesting. I hate to do this to you, but can I have 2 seconds really quick to relieve myself? Is that okay?
Yeah, go. I will entertain the people as you are gone. Right.
Just pretend you're me. Just wear a mask. Please.
All right, go SpongeBob, go get it. Okay.
Right,
so
I'll be right back.
Okay. So I actually do have a Deadpool mask, but it is somewhere in my room, and I don't think it's clean. So I will answer some other people. I know I'm behind, but when Brock is hyping about villains and Randy goes talk dirty to me, Brock. Yeah. So. Because I'm pretty drunk now. I know things, and Brock knows more things than I do because he talks to the team. Probably again, I don't typically talk to the team. I talk to people that talk to the team. He talks to the team, so he knows a lot more than I do. So again, when somebody like Brock is putting in $250,000 when the price is 0.005, pretty sure that there's some things going on that he knows that even people like I and most of the rest of us don't know. Thank you, X-Horse. Sheila Carpenter, hello, good vibes, Bloodsky. Everyone say hello to Dashi. Hello, Dashi. Everyone say hello to the Tesla Keela and Johnny Walker Blue. The Johnny Walker Blue is done, but the Tesla Keela was full. I opened this for Brock. These secrets. He do be spilling a bunch of secrets, though. I will ask him about HRO. I will ask him about one Feesh and Veve. The rug of feng shui. Oh yeah, so he did post the other day like, oh yeah, I rugged Feesh's, and what it really was is he just sent a rug, like he just sent a rug to everybody's Feesh tank. He's like, I rugged everybody, and he just sent a rug like you would get from like, Home Depot or wherever. It was great. It was cheap, under 5 gems for the common. I don't think I've seen that price for a long time. Yeah, I know. If you give yourself 3 hours to clean your house, you'll finish it in 3 hours. So 3 weeks, it'll take 3. Oh, that's such a good quote. Kobe Clutch, I love you, man. I love you, brother. You're amazing. Kobe, we've been waiting on some bugs to be addressed before Immutable. Oh yeah, so I have that tweet saved. I'm going to bring that up to him. Shout out to Gorlomi for that. He messaged me about that. So I there's so much that I have to do. Henry Pagliuca messaged me, a bunch of users on Telegram, Veve official stuff. I literally have 23 things on Twitter of people like I don't have time right now. Thumbs like an Instagram, new iCarly coming out soon. It's only 30 degrees on where I am, like 20 degrees with a wind chill. It's absolutely insane. Crypto do be pumping though. Hi Randy. Wow, you two match each other very nice. Oh dude, he's like, and this is like kind of a pat on the back to me. Like he is super. Oh hello. We were just talking about you.
On the back. No,
all good things. All good things. I forget what we were talking about beforehand, but you were talking before about people having oh hey, now that you have some money, you can take a day and you don't have to work, and you can use that as a day off. You could use that to work on other things like a passion project. There was a story that I read about this one kid that had he didn't get enough time with his dad as he would have liked to. And one random day he asked his dad, how much do you make an hour? And he's like, well, I get a salary, but he did some back of the napkin math and he determined it's like $100 an hour, whatever. And he's like, okay. So like 20 weeks later, the kid's making like $5 a week on, allowance, whatever. He says, Dad, 20 weeks ago, you told me that you made $100 an hour. You always leave before I go off to school. You always leave before like whatever. I have $100. Here's 1 hour of your time. Can I spend it with you? And the dad was like, someone was like, yes, I'll spend like the whole day with you, whatever. What was one memory or what was one thing that had touched you in a way that you decided to give up your money, give up your time, and you're just like, you know what? I'm going to do this because what you just did means that much to me.
Like for my kids or in general?
Or in general. I mean, it could be your kids, it could be something that happened
in
humanity in general.
Yeah. I think for a while I was in this weird place from the way that I grew up, that I always had to be producing value, and I was always in a state of fear about losing my job or whatever the case may be, and that just doesn't feel great. And so I'm lucky enough now to be able to take a day if I needed to. Like, as I've got this like plan for like we were talking about like future stuff or whatever. So instead of taking like a full day off, I'm working on trying to like restrict. So what if I could find more efficiency instead of doing an 8-hour day of like work? What if I do 6 hours? And then I can have an hour before and an hour after and like a lunchtime in the middle, like to where I am more around family and things like that and stuff like that. So I've made adjustments within myself to try and do that. Trying to think of like your direct question of like taking a day or taking time.
I mean, you had taken some time off to be here, and I thank you for that so much, because
I took the whole day off for the most part.
That means the world, man. That really does.
No, I really like. We have not met face to face, but I really like the way that you really give kind of just your all to your stream and your community, and trying to arm them with the most knowledge and the most perspective, and just I appreciate that. And you're not fronting like you're everything's going to go to the moon. You're just very logical and thought out. And I don't know, I gravitate to that. So my pleasure. Hopefully we'll get to hang out one day and along with a greater community, whether it's digitally or physically.
It'll happen one day.
Yeah. So yeah, given my time, I try and make it to where I've had people that wanted to learn to code or pick my brain on things, and I do sell like consulting time for like businesses. But if someone's like, I'm trying to do XYZ, and I really need some help, I try and do this thing if it's going to be more of a long-term engagement, not just kind of like a one-off question where it's like, if I really believe in the person, I will match you time for time. So you put in 2 hours, I'll give you 2 hours, and we'll go back and forth from that. And usually that's kind of the 1 foot fence that determines if someone's really in it to win it. And if they're willing to dedicate their time to it, then I'll dedicate the equal time back, or half time, or whatever I'm able to give at the time. But that usually then gets like, the more they put in, the more I'm going to put right back in and help take them further and further and further. And so I've done that quite frequently in my career. It's not that I'm saying I'm going to give like all my time forever, because there are things that just you said, what's your hourly rate? I forget the gentleman who did it, but someone said like you should determine once you get to a certain point what your hourly rate is. I want for you. My hourly rate, if I have legit hourly rates, but in my mind, my hourly rate is $5,000. And so, if it is not $5,000, is it now more important than me spending time with my kids or my family or what? Like, it's this great bar, and if I'm not getting that, then it may not be worth it. And so I'm fortunate enough to be able to say no sometimes. But usually, if someone's got a great idea, I'm willing to at least do an hour to see if it's got legs and how I can help them.
So speaking of great ideas, I imagine dozens, if not like 100 ideas run by your desk like every single day. Hey, check this out. Hey, check this out. Like, I myself, on a much smaller scale, get that, and it's like I don't have time to. And again, I don't work in like, I don't work as a developer. Like, this is my job to go through everything. Mm-hmm. But has Earth 2 ever come across your desk? And if it has, why haven't you gone into it? And if it hasn't, what are some main questions about it? Because I am pretty big into it.
Cool. So I've heard about it, but there's been another person that I I don't want to like talk about, I guess, that
Oh yeah,
I would steer away from if they were involved.
so that is one thing I do want to preface it, is that that one person that you were talking about that had their hands in influence in Ecomi, which there's no longer influence, and they did have their hands in Earth 2, which they no longer have their hands in Earth 2. So Earth 2 and Ecomi are very similar in that aspect.
Perfect. Then yeah, I have just personally not dug into it. I think I've so I try and hear people out, but I saw where Ecomi was going like ages ago, and so there's been a lot of things that opportunity costs I just have not put my time and effort into researching. I've really gone all in with Ecomi and Veve, and then outside of that has been just either personal family stuff or things like the Feeshes, where it's more like my direct control kind of things.
No.
And so no bashing against that. People have been asking me, like, I'm sure you've been getting the hero or whatever it is questions like all the time. Like, just I looked at it and I don't see anything that I'm just like, holy fuck, I have to have that. Like I did when I saw the first like Batman's hit Veve and stuff like that. So not knocking it. I have no, like, you at least have card history. Like I don't. And I now have like a limited, I've been trying to reduce the amount of like physical things that I have, aside from like art that I feel really passionate about. But I've got a bookshelf that like so if it doesn't fit there anymore, I've got to reduce something. Like that is like my commitment to myself and my house, so it doesn't become overrun with life-side Todds and stuff like that. But so yeah, I think it's just not something I've gotten to. Like, I guess if you were going to give me your flip question was, what are my questions? I think in a nutshell, what I see is it's like a metaverse sort of play or land mapped to real world stuff. Mm-hmm. Is that the elevator pitch, or what makes it uniquely special?
So at first, when it first came out, it was the first of its kind to make a one-to-one map of Earth. Every other thing, like My Neighbor Alice or Sandbox or Decentraland or the Weverse eventually, will be a made-up metaverse. Like, it has this part of this part of this. It's like common area and there's private area over here. But Earth 2 partnered with Mapbox and said, like, no, let's make a one-to-one map of Earth. And there's been sales that are big inside of Earth 2 that don't sell for like, 6 or 7 figures, but Statue of Liberty sold for 65 grand, place, like the White House sold for like 70 grand, Vatican sells for, real, and they're really small tiles of land. But what I really noticed about it is that it's very addicting. Back even like a year or so ago, where there was no game, there was no jewels, like there was no economy, there was no mentors you could use, there was no crypto. Like right now they have this thing called Essence, which is mined by, if you have like you have a property, you have a mentor on your property, which can detect Essence, and you outfit your mentor with jewels. And if you do that, and jewels are found each day on your land, you collect those jewels, you put them on your mentors, they collect more ether, and you convert that ether to Essence. It sounds it's a complicated way of saying, like, that's your way of mining the crypto. And it's not available publicly for trade. It will get a Binance listing at some point. And it's like an engine building game, like whether it's, like Wingspan or any type of board game engine building game, that's what it has. And those of us that were lucky enough to get in really early, we have the type of land that creates the most ether, which can be detected by the mentor, which can get Essence. So there's only 5 billion Essence that could ever be mined, much of which was burned when people were creating like these special jewels. These special jewels will one day give you more oil, gold, whatever stuff that's on your property. But there's only 122 million Essence in circulating supply. So in like Q2, Q3, when it gets on Binance, even if it's $1, that's only $122 million market cap. It's nothing. That's 1/6 of the amount of OMI. Now again, it doesn't have any of the IP that Ecomi has, but in some ways, as far as the metaverse is concerned, it is ahead of Ecomi. It is ahead of a couple of other things. Could the game come out and be a dud? Absolutely. But same thing with Ecomi. Could the metaverse come out? It could be laggy. It could be something where, oh, I want this, this, and this, but it doesn't offer that. It only offers X, Y, and Z. So that's why I really enjoy it and love it. that we were talking about Shark Tank before, where Damon John has endorsed it and Logan Paul's endorsed. A lot of people are into it, which doesn't necessarily mean that it's a good game or it will have a good future. But that's why I really enjoy it. I enjoy it because also it's given me the knowledge of saying that just because you have land in the Veveverse doesn't mean it'll be good. You'd have land in the middle of nowhere, it won't be as good as land that will be right next to Nintendo Land, if we have it, or Disneyland, if Disney's even a part of our metaverse, because Disney has filed for their own metaverse, so we don't technically know, or some licenses that haven't been announced yet, or that we have like Capcom and Street Fighter that has been announced but we don't have yet, that type of deal. So that's my whole pitch on Earth 2 and why I love it.
Got it. It sounds cool. I would want to dig in and say and again, I don't want to put you on the spot or make it seem like I'm forcing you to defend it. But those essences or whatever can I earn? What can I do with those? Or is it just you mine and then if you earn it, you can mine more, and it's this constant? Or is there actual
So it is that constant. Metaverse? It is that constant engine building where you mine it and then you use it to build up your property, or you build up weapons or whatever, and then you can use that to take over other lands to get more property, so you can get more jewels, outfit it with mentors to detect more essence, and it's like Monster Hunter. You get experience points, you upgrade your armor, but the monsters upgrade. That's how it works. That's cool. You could and you could sell everything that you get, you create. That's cool. So that's my pitch on Earth 2. But for more important stuff, when Fish and Veve, will we be able to get that?
With that, I do talk to the team, but I make zero promises. I would hate for someone to buy into Feesh thinking that it's a guarantee, because Veve is operating with millions, if not billions, of dollars of IP. My Feesh that I spent almost a year, 5 months before, and we're in 4 months in now. No way is one-to-one with what they're doing. So I don't know if that will ever happen. If I'm being honest, it would be completely in their court. However, if they do release similarly to what I've done with Veve, where there's a frame or some kind of accessory that allows you to connect to the internet to display an Ethereum-based NFT, you could technically, in theory, access a web-based URL, like my Feesh tanks, and then that would be one way in. They could also just say, hey, we really like what you're doing with Feesh, come on in, and I would be open to that. But the ball is totally in their court. There are other projects out there though that do AR type things, and I'm sure that would be cool if they showed up in other places, at least first or whatever. And then just another thing I'll throw out is the fish tanks themselves. If you have a Chromecast or Apple TV or whatever, you can cast them to your television. So instead of waiting for the Veveverse or whatever, you can just put it on your TV now. Or if you've got the Quest, I've got the Quest 2 next to me here, so that's why I keep looking at it.
Same.
But you can drop the browser in just the main hub kind of thing and pull up your fish tank and bookmark it, and then you can see it, and you can even scale up to the 180 degree kind of panoramic thing, and they look great in there. So I've been trying to just push what I can control. So it would be great. I would love for them to be in Veve, just because it would be another way for the project to have value, but it's not something that I'm necessarily beating down their door. I know they're super busy. I think if anything, if they're no OMI utility, but guess what, you can put fish tanks in, people probably riot. So I'm sure that they will be focusing on the main things that they need to focus on, and I doubt Feesh is necessarily high up on the radar, if at all. But at the same time, I think there's the possibility, as they do one type of functionality within Veve, that you could technically, in theory, open it up to the Feesh. So we'll see.
The reason why I addressed that question is because we do know that David Yu does have Feesh, and I thought that either one of two things would happen. Either he would really want Feesh to be in Veve because he has Feesh, or because that he has Feesh, he doesn't want people to think that he's serving himself, and he would purposely want to not include Feesh because he doesn't want to be accused of that reason. That is why I asked you that.
Yeah. So just 100% keeping it real. I will sometimes be working on features, and I will say, hey, David, check this out. And he is I know that it's kind of a mutual, like we shared, I guess, secrets, if you will, through being like an NDA beta tester type thing, where I just like, as much as with Feeshes, it's my thing. So if I leak, and it just forces me to come up with even better stuff. So in a way, it's a benefit for me to leak that, like, if the year was 2099, like the pink moon would fall on a different date, then that'd be really weird. But anyway, and you'd want to have like a Feesh before some special airdrop happened, April 6th or something like that. But like, so things like that, I can like say in theory, and then and it's all on me. But yeah, so I will slide David kind of sneak peeks, sometimes Reese, like of like, here's what's coming, and he'll kind of get I think it's a good distraction from him, and he genuinely enjoys the project, rather than him doing anything either beneficial or Malik. Like, no, I don't think that's even on his mind. That's just not who he is. I just think he genuinely, and he'll ask me just like, you sure you're the only one doing this? I'm like, yep, it's just me, man. And so like I said, I've contracted out 2 things. One's an animation from a friend that does great work, and then an entire music album that will be airdropped to everybody, that's all Feesh themed. So just again, I'm trying to take whatever I make and reinvest it in different ways to try and give more value back. But again, I understand that people come for Deadpool, Marvel, whatever in the Veve side, and not everyone's like, yeah, let me get on those Feesh things. But I'm glad to hear that most of the time people message me saying how much they enjoy the Feesh, and so that it's cool that I've been able to create something that people relate to, enjoy, and just, again, I'm pushing the envelope on the amount of value that you're able to produce. And we're all executive producers in a movie now, like those kinds of things that are just unique.
Yeah, no, I feel you. And sometimes I think that the team, they don't show it, which is really why I enjoy them a lot. But they've got to be so stressed. They've got to be so like, sometimes like, hey, I need a drink, or I need a big bag of weed or whatever. Because and I think that I'm very happy that you're doing this, because they're using Feesh as a way to like de-stress and relax and everything.
Yep.
Before I get to the Ecomi side, there is one thing that I do want to ask, which I tend to ask a lot of people, and I'll get to the Ecomi tweet in a second. But in any part of your, whether it's called like philanthropy or gift giving or wanting to give back, did any of that have to do with any like psychedelics? Did any of that have to do with hallucinogens, or was that just from your inculcated from your parents, or was it a mix of both?
I just think that it's since how I grew up, I've wanted to help people and solve problems. I've done very little drugs throughout my life. It's like, not that you asked, I guess, but sort of you did ask. But the idea of like hallucinating, my brain is like interested by the thought of what it would be like, but I've never partaken. I also have this like weird duality throughout my whole life. Like, things are very doubly. And so although that is interesting to me to see like what it would be like, and there's the curiosity, the other side is I don't like to lose who I am in a way. But I'm very interested. Like I've read up on like some psychedelic, like DMT, and like some other things about like the belief that we're all just like wavelengths or waves, and all these kinds of interesting thoughts. Like, I don't know. I am from space, and so I'm not supposed to say too much more about what really is true.
Fair point. It's like you could not lose yourself. You could become more of yourself, like yourself times 3.
Yeah, but like even drinking, like I don't like to drink to the point. I drink more for like the taste than I do for to like blackout or anything like that. So I very much, and I think it's like maybe you hit the head on that. Like I like to try and make sure that I feel like I'm in control, and like the other side would make me lose that feeling. And so I don't know if it's a fear or just like it's never it's just the opportunity's never presented itself. So
I do want to talk to you at least while I'm hanging out with my friend Lucy, if that makes sense.
Sure.
And because even you as well, I think that'd be like the amount of thought that I think would go into some of those conversations, I think would be really cool.
It's a fun experiment for science. We can try
it. Would be for science. So Ecomi's last tweet saying, quote, "We've been waiting on some bugs to be addressed before directing people to Immutable X Marketplace. But it's available now if you know how to use it. Withdrawals from Veve app and deposits onto layer 2 seem to be working fine, but moving from immutable X to Veve wallet isn't available yet, end quote. What's your take on some of that?
So I think that Veve is a startup, and they're, even though they are making tons and tons, and they've got these huge IPs, they're still like moving at a startup pace, and I think that that's very, very rapidly. However, also sometimes it's seemingly from the exterior that it's slow, because sometimes when you're a startup, you build things in a certain level, and then you need to scale that up. But you wouldn't want to build it to the highest scale now, because it would take longer to get the perceived traction or the traction that you need. If that makes sense. And so like, you don't go in and make everything to the enterprise level, because you might go too far and you build this really, really awesome house that has all this elevator and everything's electronic and computerized, but like it's built 3 miles from where you need it. But does that make sense? Like, you don't go too far in one direction, because you're still learning, and something that might be super, super fruitful is in a completely different direction where you think the trajectory needs to be. And so with that, I think they're right on path. But I know that as a software developer that's built tons of things, like of how these things kind of work. And maybe that's why I'm not freaking out, because this is the path that I would take for the most part. The flip side, I think, is IMX is in a similar boat, where they're doing some really, really great things and jumping out ahead of the pack in theory, but they've still got to like kind of level up their technology and grow. And so I think there's been some of this with everybody wanting it to beat them down and say like, oh, we want to use your stuff. They weren't ready necessarily for the success that they're seeing. And so there's been this kind of slow down to speed up period that we've seen in other places. And it's normal, it's natural. It's just what's not normal is for them to just overnight become like the hottest girl at the dance or whatever. And so what I think, just getting to the actual like heart of it, Veve wants it to be able to just go send from here to here, everything's good. Send from here into here, and everything's good. It seems like there's a hiccup for part of that journey, but you could take your OMI, withdraw it from the Veve app, and send it over to IMX's marketplace. The problem is, because it's not full, like that loop is not completed yet. You technically, although some people feel like they're stuck within Veve, you could do the same thing where you're stuck within the IMX marketplace, and there might not be a ton of stuff that you want to buy just yet. When interoperability comes, and that's it. But this sounds like a small hiccup overall that should be rectified pretty soon. It doesn't sound like it's that big of a deal, but I think it has been a bit of time to get this addressed. So it just depends on what other priorities IMX is dealing with at the time.
Okay, good. Thank you for the explanation. One more I do want to talk to you off camera for 1 minute, but one more question beforehand.
Sure.
Do you have HRO? And if you do, why or why not? And I bring this up because Hello K said that the only other project that he's found the last year and a half outside of Ecomi is Hero, and that's why he invested. So I really want your opinions on that.
Yeah, I think that it's a different project. I've looked at it just enough. I think their app looks really, really nice. It seems like they've gotten some things ahead of time. I think that in the last AMA, some people misinterpreted what David had said as far as like, we never meant to be a cash app, as him saying like, we never meant to give you your money back or anything like that. And that's not the truth. I think what he was trying to communicate was, when we first started making this application, this whole marketplace was never a thing. And so we started laying a foundation for one thing, and then it needed like a garage that we never planned for. And so we're now doing the work to do this, but because of that, we also want to do it at the scale that it's a global cash out and not just limited to one or other. So that they've had to have some adjusting. It takes a lot more effort to like lay new cement than if you're just pouring one whole foundation at a company's. That I'm doing a lot of house building metaphors today. I don't know why that's where my head is. So I think with other apps that have come along, you've seen this with Recur, and it looks like Hero also is going to have like cash out and interoperability and stuff. It's because they had seen things move, and now they're able to kind of like jump ahead because they're building to accompany that. So it looks like they've got some good features that we've been kind of almost seemingly waiting for with Veve, because I think that's it was things that they grew and learned that companies that have come along before can kind of like jump into, whereas Veve had to kind of like build on extra. So it's just a bigger lift. Not that we won't have it, it's just a different way of approaching things. And so I've looked at their product. I don't see anything. Again, I'm not a card person. So the cards to me are less appealing. And the NFTs being just flat for me is meh. I'm not trying to shit on the project. I'm just saying my personal opinion. If I can go and buy a Batman and Veve that is like a statue, or eventually maybe even an interactive digital toy, that's more my arena, because that's how I grew up. I grew up with like action figures and things like that. So that speaks to my nostalgia side. The fact that I can get artists and other things also appeals to me. So for me, I'm more slanted towards Veve. I do see the appeal for some people that come from like a world of cards or more comic book collecting, where it would make sense. But also know that like David did say something about additional comics coming outside of Marvel. So as much as it might be cool to get like a flat slide or panel, who knows what's coming? So we'll see. For me, I do like DC. I'm probably more of a DC person than Marvel, and so I'm hoping that Veve does more with them. But I also know that IP's from some other people that have worked with them a little bit slower to go, and not as driven or hungry as maybe your Marvel's stuff. So it is what it is. The cool thing is that I think that both can succeed. So it doesn't. I think that anyone that's got the mindset of like, all you people used to be Veve people and now you're hero people, you're the worst. Like, that is not how the community should probably be acting. Like, surprise, people can like two things, just like you can watch more than one channel on television, or you can listen to more than one album on a music thing. So just let people do what they want to do. Just because one is where everyone was, and now some people are splitting it to two, that's okay. And the cool thing is, you might see that Hero does some things that take some attention while Veve is building out the next. Then Veve kind of erupts again, and then Hero kind of gets some time to breathe, and like the two can actually kind of like coexist and kind of split your attention a little bit. So it is what it is. I'm more of a fan of Veve, but that is a personal preference, and I would not knock anyone that is jumping into Hero or Recur or anything else. They will all have the potential to win, and if anything, someone that might find Hero or Recur first and then see what Veve's got, you can actually go the other way. So being kind of like sour about it actually can be like unattractive to new people. So instead of us all saying like, we're going to win together, hooray Web3, we're kind of like putting ourselves on these islands and throwing spheres at each other that like don't need to happen, right? Like we can all be cool. It just let people do what they want, and you do what you want, and we can all coexist. So
agreed. I love that. We'll get the bumper stickers that coexist, maybe on our Feesh tank.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for all your time, all your things. I do want to talk to you off camera for 1 minute, but
sure.
Everyone say thank you to Brock. Everyone say bye-bye to Dashi.
Bye, Dashi.
And thank you, everyone. Until next time, maybe our next meeting will be in person. Maybe it won't be. I don't know. I love you. Goodbye. Meow, meow. And Brock.